What is human life like wherever we go in this world? It should be like a wild swan treading across snow and mud. For a moment its claws leave faint traces upon the mire, yet once the swan takes flight it no longer concerns itself with direction nor ever looks back at the marks it has left behind. Soon a small pile was accumulated. After clearing one spot he supported himself with one hand and dragged his legs to another area. Suddenly the horses were agitated. The groom looked up and saw a figure standing under the flickering light. The spotless person arriving at such a filthy stable was indeed surprising. However, the groom showed no sign of astonishment and quietly resumed cleaning the stable as if she were no different from the horses. After a long while a series of swish-swish sounds grew increasingly rapid. He finally couldn't help but lift his head to see what she was doing. She was washing the horses. A bucket of water freshly drawn from the well was beside her and she was rolling up her sleeves vigorously scrubbing the muddy horses. Mud splashed all over her but she seemed unconcerned. "You finally found your way here," the groom finally spoke, sighing. "What is the point?" Her hands did not pause as she gritted her teeth. "Because I want to." After brushing 7 or 8 horses in one go she finally stopped, turned to look at the groom, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. He was also looking at her. Anyone who had seen him would never think he was merely a groom. His face was handsome and clear with strong features and there was a demeanor in his eyes that suggested he could command the world, yet on his forehead was branded the character for prisoner in a bluish-gray hue indicating he was a convict sent to the border. The girl in white sat beside him completely unconcerned about the dirt on the ground. She lowered her head seemingly unsure of what to say and fell into silence. The silence appeared to be a rare enjoyment as long as she was beside him. Even if he said not a word she felt happy. Seeing him struggling to clean the ground with his injured leg she exclaimed in surprise, "Your leg isn't better yet." Those 40 military whips were quite severe. She took out a medicated plaster from her pocket and carefully applied it to his leg while muttering softly, "That old bastard you do is determined to make things difficult for you, he's simply." The groom pulled his leg back as if suddenly awakening. He turned his face coldly and said, "This is not a place for you, Princess Wei Yang. It's too late. It's really inappropriate for a man and a woman to be alone together." Princess Wei Yang. This girl living at the border was actually a princess. "Don't call me princess, call me Xuehong." The girl's hand froze, suddenly correcting him sharply, savoring his words, a bitter smile slowly spreading across her face. "Right. I shouldn't have come here. Perhaps I should be like before, embracing my mink coat by the stove, teasing the parrot on the rack, but I would rather be here. I want to be with you, Di Qing." Di Qing. A name that shone brightly in history, a renowned general of the border often mentioned alongside Hua Zubing and Li Guang. What a dazzling and enviable name. Yet long before he became famous for his battles no one would have expected him to have such a past. He was just a prisoner, a groom sleeping in a haystack and spending his days among the horses. Xuehong noticed his gaze gradually soften, no longer holding the coldness of rejecting others. She reached out to apply the medicine to his injury. Her movements were gentle as if afraid to hurt him. After applying the medicine she looked up and met his gradually softening gaze. Her heart trembled. She had abandoned her family, forsaken glory and traveled from the capital to this desolate place. Wasn't it all for a gaze like his? On a cold morning Di Qing took her swollen hand soaked in water and held it in his warm and strong grasp, just like who he was. Xuehong's delicate hand trembled slightly in his palm. He was no ordinary being. One day he would surely gain fame at the border. "You who has returned to the capital, now you will have your chance to shine," she said softly. Di Qing smiled noncommittally. "The newly arrived Major General Ding Young is steady and capable. I believe he is a leader who recognizes talent." When she mentioned Major General Ding her tone sounded somewhat unnatural. Di Qing sighed and released her hand. "It's dawn, you should hurry back." He bent down again to clean the stable, no longer glancing at her as if she were just a stranger. Because he understood he had nothing to offer her. He was merely an unknown individual born into poverty. But Xuehong was from the Zhao family. A noble lineage, a name belonging to the current emperor of the Song dynasty. She was a member of the royal family. Although this branch of her family was a distant relative of the current emperor and their influence had greatly diminished, she still bore the blood of royalty. Moreover, her beauty and intelligence were well known among the royal clan. Her father had found her a powerful family to marry into. Once she entered that family, her branch of the family would surely rise again in the court. Yet she had forsaken her family, the first family holding the reins of power, the Zhao family. Simply because she had met Di Qing, a convict just released from prison in Yozhou who was now to be sent to the border. She had eloped without regard for the humiliation it would bring to the royal family. That day the skies were clear and Xuehong went out for a spring outing with her family, secretly slipping away midway. In just a few months she was to be married. For some reason, even though she knew her fiancé was a powerful noble of the current court, she felt an emptiness in her heart. She hadn't even met him yet. She was to become his wife, spending her days in the vastness of the noble family. At only 18 years old she did not want to bury her life so soon. When she caught sight of someone washing horses across the stream she was startled. She immediately vomited out the water she had just drunk. Throughout her life she had eaten all kinds of delicacies but had never drunk horse washing water. At that time she was young and arrogant, basking in her favor, and immediately began to scold the groom across the stream. She had secretly learned many scolding phrases, but the strict upbringing at home had rarely allowed her to show off. This time was perfect. She finally had the chance to flaunt her eloquence. Her voice was like a nightingale emerging from the valley, enchanting and pleasant. The group of soldiers across the stream were utterly dumbfounded. To be honest, at that moment she didn't seem to be scolding. Her soft and melodious voice sounded more like singing. At this moment those washing the horses became agitated. What a beautiful girl. Let's tease her. Let her experience the might of the soldiers. Who told her to scold? Xuehong found the scolding uninteresting and was just about to leave when suddenly the horses across the stream let out a frightened whinny and several angry horses charged toward her. She turned her head and caught sight of the enraged horses rushing through the water, momentarily stunned. In an instant her petite figure had disappeared into the herd, and after a startled cry she fell silent. At that moment a soldier from across the stream rushed through the water, shouting loudly, grabbing the tail of one horse and pulling hard, managing to drag two galloping horses back a few feet. He was struggling to control the horses that had been deliberately provoked by their companions when he suddenly heard someone giggle. Xuehong had steadily held one horse's halter, stopping two horses that rushed in front of her, smiling effortlessly. Hey, let go. I'm not afraid. She smiled brightly at the soldier in worn clothes with disheveled hair, saying, let all these horses come, I'm not afraid. However, the soldier did not release his hold. Instead he stepped back a few paces with the horse. He was not tall, with thick eyebrows and a straight nose, his gaze calm and composed, exuding the aura of a general who could decide battles from afar. Xuehong was about to say something when she saw the group of soldiers washing horses had all surrounded her, teasing her with their hands and feet. She was furious, shouting, you guys have some nerve. Be careful with your heads. The crowd burst into laughter. What a spicy little lady. One person reached out to touch her face but was stopped by the soldier who had just controlled the angry horse. Everyone, please stop. In broad daylight, how can you tease a respectable woman? The crowd felt disappointed and cursed. Qing, you're here again. What are you pretending to be all serious about? Go away. If you're not playing, just stand aside. Hearing their unrestrained discussion about her, Xuehong became furious and shouted even louder, listen up, I am Princess Wei Yang. I have a gold medal on me and can take your lives at any time. She released the two horses and took out the imperial gold medal from her bosom, ready to teach that rude crowd a lesson, when suddenly she heard Qing shout, be careful. She was about to ask, careful of what, when she saw the horses beside her suddenly became agitated and kicked their hind legs up towards her. There was no time to dodge. She was hit squarely in the lower back and a light sound of a bone cracking could be heard. Having been pampered all her life, she was momentarily stunned. She had been kicked. Was she going to die? A hand suddenly pulled her over just in time to avoid another kick. She cried out in shock, and before her voice faded that hand embraced her waist, throwing her to the ground, rolling her quickly to the side. More horses' hooves thundered down behind her. Xuehong was both frightened and embarrassed, realizing that the one who saved her was the soldier who had just controlled the horses. She felt an inexplicable anger and slapped him. You disgusting hand, how dare you touch me? Qing was taken aback and a hint of coldness flashed across his eyes, yet he silently stood to the side. Princess, forgive me. The gold medal fell to the ground, and all the soldiers, seeing they had teased the current princess, were shocked. Xuehong angrily cursed, just about to rise when a sharp pain shot through her lower back and everything in front of her turned dark. When she awoke, she opened her eyes to see the familiar furnishings of the princess's residence, and beside her stood her maid Yin Shui. Miss, you're awake. Yin Shui exclaimed joyfully, and immediately the sounds of movement came from outside the room. Her parents came in, her brother came in, and all the aunts and uncles rushed in, all talking at once. Wei Yang is awake. Oh dear, at such a young age you've injured your back, you'll suffer from back pain when you're old. Xuehong felt overwhelmed. She had just woken up and was truly frightened by those kind-hearted people. But with her parents present, having grown up with strict family teachings, she could only smile and return their greetings politely, deftly dealing with the crowd. She desperately suppressed her displeasure, maintaining a gentle smile on her face. Eventually her mother intervened. Wei Yang, your back injury has just healed, you should lie down and rest. So all the relatives in the room retreated. She obediently lay down, but no matter what she couldn't fall asleep. Turning over she asked Yin Shui, how many days have I slept? Miss, you've been in a coma for 4 days. Everyone in the Wang residence is worried sick. My goodness. 4 days in a coma. Xuehong exclaimed in surprise but quickly covered her mouth, her eyes darting around. This was somewhat improper. She hoped no one would hear. Yin Shui smiled, don't worry miss, there's no one in the room. Xuehong sighed in relief. After growing up in privilege, this was her first time encountering such a dangerous experience. It was quite exhilarating. Yin Shui hesitantly continued, as if she had been harboring a lot of grievances. Miss, while you were in a coma these days everyone was anxious, yet the Ding family over there showed no signs of concern, not even bothering to ask. Truly heartless. Xuehong's face turned slightly red, a wave of disappointment rising in her heart, though she retorted, he is the Grand Marshal of the Empire. Busy. Yin Shui angrily replied, what busy? An unwed bride got hurt and he doesn't even inquire, I think. Likely he would be glad if you died. The young master of the Ding family has been captivated by a female performer from Suzhou, constantly clamoring to break off the engagement. It's absurd, with your character and beauty you would be fit to be an empress, yet that brat is still not satisfied. How despicable. Xuehong's complexion gradually paled, her head lowered, staring blankly at the butterfly and flower pattern on the silk quilt. Yin Shui noticed the princess was saddened and swiftly changed the subject, advising, Miss, there's no need to be heartbroken. Rest assured this engagement was personally promised by the emperor. Although the Ding family is powerful, they cannot possibly go against the imperial decree to break off an engagement. Don't worry miss. Xuehong remained silent, twisting the tassel on the canopy, letting out a sigh. She wasn't happy now and she wouldn't be in the future. She suddenly recalled something and asked, has my father investigated the matter of my injury? Of course. That guy was so bold, how dare he tease the princess. The adult punished him with 100 lashes in public and he was sent to prison. Perhaps he would be sentenced to death in autumn. Yin Shui said angrily. Princess Wei Yang felt something was amiss and couldn't help but ask that guy. It should be those guys instead. Did they only capture one and let the others go? Hey, who was that unfortunate soul? Wow. Xuehong, ignoring her back pain, sat up in bed and shouted, how did they catch him and let the others go? Damn it, this is ridiculous. In her haste she let slip a curse. Yin Shui shot her a warning glance, but Xuehong, not seeing her signal, continued to rant, father is so muddle-headed. Wei Yan, you are being unruly again. A voice rang out from the doorway, sternly scolding, as a proper county princess, what kind of manners are these? Upon hearing that voice, Xuehong's body trembled and she quickly fell silent, lowering her eyes. Father, I know I was wrong. The county king snorted, waved his hand and asked, what did you just say? That person is innocent. But those soldiers all pointed to him as the culprit. That's why I punished him harshly. Xuehong realized that those soldiers had all conspired to frame the good person. Her face turned pale with anger and she had no choice but to recount the events as they happened. When it came to his selfless act of saving her, she felt a bit embarrassed but still spoke honestly. Father, do you think those people are despicable? Please release him and give him some silver, she pleaded. The county king pondered for a long time before standing up. I understand, you can rest assured. Watching his retreating figure, Xuehong called over Yin Shui and whispered, I want to go see that person in the prison tonight. Tell old you to keep the side door open so I can sneak out. Yin Shui was startled. Miss, you just got into trouble and now you want to go out again. If the master finds out, it will be a disaster. Xuehong shot her a glare. Foolish girl, can't we just keep it from him? She thought for a moment and then instructed, go to the pharmacy and bring back some medicated ointment, but be careful not to let mother find out. Yin Shui sighed and obediently went to comply. Although the young lady was obedient, she was not someone to be easily manipulated. Once she had set her mind on something, even a herd of cattle couldn't pull her back. Watching her prepare everything and change into a set of agile clothes as she gracefully stepped out, Yin Xue's heart sank. She had a premonition that tonight would not be peaceful. When Xuehong entered the prison, she couldn't help but cover her nose. The dampness inside mixed with an unbearable stench made her feel nauseous. She waved her gold medallion at the guard, who immediately stood up. Princess. She covered her nose and quietly asked, which cell is the one for Qing? Quickly take me there. The warden emerged, his face pale, repeatedly smiling. Princess, this place is too dirty, please return. His expression was uncertain, as if he was worried about something. The guard took the opportunity to slip away. Xuehong grew impatient, slammed the medallion on the table and commanded, take me there now, stop the nonsense. The warden dared not disobey, dejectedly leading her further inside. He stopped in front of a cell, took out a key to unlock the door. His hand trembled violently, nearly unable to hold the lock. Is there something on your conscience? Xuehong snatched the key from him, her heart filled with doubt. This was a solitary cell usually reserved for death row inmates. Qing did not deserve death. Why was he thrown into the death cell? She unlocked the door and pushed it open. A puddle of purple blood lay on the ground. Blood so dark it seemed black. Ah, she gasped in shock. Warden, what happened to him? While speaking, she knelt on the straw and turned over the prisoner, who lay motionless on the grass. He was covered in blood, beaten to a pulp. His blood stained his clothes red, but Xuehong could only stare blankly at his face. It had turned gray, his features twisted in agony. There was a trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth, black blood, the color symbolizing death. His hand clutched a handful of straw, his nails digging deep into the flesh. What is going on? What is going on? Xuehong shouted back, Warden, are you going to poison him? How dare you? Her voice trembled with extreme anger. The warden did not dare to look at her, mumbling something under his breath. Xuehong took out a medicine box from her bosom, retrieved a pill, crushed it into powder with her hands and fed it to Qing. This was the supreme medicine she carried with her, hoping to alleviate the poison's effects. Her hands trembled slightly. She did not know why she was so anxious, as if her own life was also hanging by a thread. She turned her head and stared fiercely at the warden, asking again, what did you just say? Speak up. The warden seemed to muster his courage and replied, it was the county king who ordered me to do this. What? Xuehong was suddenly dumbfounded. Her whole body felt as if all strength had drained away as she sank onto the straw pile, staring blankly at the ground. Father wants to kill him. Why? Because he offended you, he touched you. If this matter spreads, it would tarnish your pure reputation. You are marrying into the Ding family in 2 months, and I do not want them to have any reason to find fault with you. Just then the cell door opened again and the guard hurriedly brought in a middle-aged man dressed in luxurious attire, the county king. He looked at his dazed daughter and then at the dying Qing, unable to help but frown, and shouted, Wei Yang, do not touch him. Be careful not to dirty your hands. Xuehong muttered, dirty. My hands. She seemed dazed, repeating it softly over and over. Suddenly she looked up and smirked. Father, I understand. You are killing to silence him for the sake of your daughter's reputation, right? The county king nodded. Indeed, I will also kill the other soldiers who offended you. Father is also doing this for your own good. Xuehong stared at him intently before suddenly bursting into laughter. Your good intentions. You are merely scheming to marry me off to the Ding family to climb the social ladder and regain your power. You really care about your daughter knowing that Ding Ning already has someone she loves, yet you still go to such lengths to tear them apart. You are pushing your daughter into a pit of fire. The county king's gaze gradually turned cold and he sternly warned Wei Yan, be quiet. Xuehong laughed loudly. I will not be quiet. I refuse to be silenced. I have been silent for 18 years. I want to speak. In her eyes for the first time an overwhelming determination and courage sparkled. The county king said nothing more, suddenly lunging forward and pointing at her acupoint. His skills were surprisingly top-notch. Emperor Taizu Zhaoquinin, known for his prowess with the staff, had founded a new dynasty and his martial prowess was not to be underestimated. The martial arts manuals he left behind had been passed down in the Zhao clan for 100 years, with most of the noble males practicing them, and the county king was among the best. However, as soon as he made his move, Xuehong subtly shifted and immediately dodged the strike. Her footwork was incredibly clever, as if she had merely taken a leisurely step, her posture graceful and her demeanor elegant. Her skills had also reached an extraordinary level. The county king paused, examining his daughter. After a long time he slowly asked, when did you master this? I read that book too. I learned it a year ago, but you just didn't know. Xuehong scoffed, her eyes filled with sarcasm. Do not think you know everything. Do not think I will only obediently follow your orders. You do not want to marry into the Ding family. The county king looked at his rebellious daughter, anger rising in his eyes. To hell with the Ding family. Xuehong cursed recklessly. I would rather die than marry. That resolute answer that had never been seen before startled the county king. He paused, then suddenly chuckled coldly. Very well, then you can watch this person die. He was poisoned with the Qianji toxin. That secret pill of yours only suppresses the poison. In less than 3 hours he will die a painful death. Xuehong was stunned, staring blankly down at Di Qing. Although he could not move, his consciousness remained. A flash of resoluteness crossed his dim gaze. He did not want to become someone else's pawn, forcing a noble girl as pitiful as her. Blood continued to flow from the corner of his mouth, dark purple blood, and he used his last bit of strength to push her hand away, signaling that she need not worry about him. Xuehong sat dazed in the straw, watching the person slowly die. She had only met Di Qing once, and it was in such an unpleasant circumstance, but for some reason this lowly soldier left a mark on her that she could not forget. For what reason? Was it for the calmness and composure in his eyes? Or was it for the extraordinary demeanor that sometimes flashed within him? Or perhaps it was nothing more than the fact that he was the first good person she encountered after leaving that cage. She held Di Qing's hand, feeling his warmth slowly fading away. Her hand began to tremble. After a long moment she suddenly looked up and declared resolutely, all right. I will marry him. Give me the antidote. The county king chuckled coldly and immediately pulled out a small vial from his bosom and tossed it over. He understood that his daughter had a fiery temperament and always acted on her words. Once she made a promise, she would never go back on it. Xuehong administered the antidote to Di Qing, her expression calm. In just one night she seemed to have grown up a lot. Di Qing's hand began to warm up again and his pulse gradually strengthened. Xuehong looked at the handsome young man, her heart aching as she gazed at the character prisoner branded on his forehead. This was all her fault. He finally opened his eyes and looked at her. Princess Huayang's heart trembled. For the first time in 18 years she felt a complex and indescribable emotion, a feeling that shook her deepest heart. She held Di Qing's hand, wishing never to let go forever and ever. Could it be that this was the word love she had read about in poetry before? At that moment the county king spoke up. Wei Yan, be careful not to dirty your clothes. Come back to the palace with me. Xuehong gritted her teeth, slowly releasing her grip, and said softly, you must guarantee that you won't kill him. Otherwise what I will do is something you as a father understand best. As she spoke her tears began to fall, gently landing on his hand. The tears were scalding hot. She understood that from now on she would return to the cage in which she had been imprisoned for 18 years, becoming Mrs. Ding. There would only be one person in this world who had the right to hold her hand. But that person was not the one she wanted. All she desired were some trivial things. Just a day ago she was a refined lady of a prestigious family, but in the mere span of a night she had rebelled against her father, against her family, and even defied the imperial edict to break off her engagement. Because she finally understood what she wanted, she yearned for true freedom and genuine love. However, even though she understood she would never be able to attain it in the future. Yet understanding was better than living a muddled life. Some people in this world never know what they want until the day they die. After she left, the county king pondered for a long time before finally finding a compromise, issuing orders word by word. Send this fellow to the human pass for military service and let Commander Yu take good care of him, never allowing him to return to the Central Plains. Thus history turned to a new page, leaving behind a name that would shine through the ages, Di Qing. He was originally a rural youth conscripted into the army far away from home. He thought that as long as he worked diligently for a few years he could return home after his service. Unexpectedly this turmoil pushed him toward another shore. Amidst the icy wind, snow and rain, and the flying sand and stones he worked hard. Even though he faced criticism and discrimination from several superiors, he endured quietly. But he often felt lost, because he did not understand what he was living for. Until one day as his team passed through the Langjuxia mountain he heard a soldier nearby pointing at a dirt platform saying, "This is it. Hua Zubing once sealed the mountain here." The soldiers stirred, discussing animatedly. Hua Zubing, a renowned general who shone in history. Di Qing's eyes brightened, unable to suppress the excitement in his heart, and he walked to the edge of the dirt platform. He placed his hand on the remaining stone tablet, gazing far into the central plains as if seeing the billowing smoke of war from over 1,000 years ago, witnessing the fierce battles and the exploits of General Hua, who chased the Xiongnu for over 800 miles. A true man should die on the battlefield wrapped in horsehide. Suddenly he felt an unexplainable excitement in his heart, silently making a wish. One day I, Di Qing, will stand here, seal the Langjuxia, and pacify the northern frontier for the Song dynasty. Just as he was lost in thought, the sergeant behind him shouted sharply, breaking his reverie. He hurriedly took the reins and caught up with the team. Perhaps he didn't even realize that years later he truly stood on that platform. The first part, Section 3. The Autumn Military Parade on the Battlefield. On the boundless yellow sands, tens of thousands of horses and troops were lined up, with each team's banners clearly visible and discipline strictly enforced. Under the blazing sun the crowd sweat poured down, yet they stood there wearing heavy armor waiting for inspection. Today marks the first troop review since Major General Ding Ning took command. A group of cavalry slowly passed in front of the ranks. At the center was a young general in a white robe, flanked by two deputy commanders, Fang Tianyu and Hong Jiang. The person in the center wore a long sword at his waist named E10. He is Ding Ning. After 3 drumbeats he ascended the high platform to observe the formation drill. The commander waved 3 colored flags and the various troops flowed like serpents. The formation quickly transformed into a grand array with different banners displayed. Each soldier had their duties coordinating with each other while maintaining their independence, moving in an orderly fashion. The time continued until dusk. Ding Ning waved his hand, giving the order, "All troops stand down and prepare for the ritual." 3 sacrificial animals and fruits were brought to the temple front. Ding Ning raised his knife and severed the pig's throat, pouring blood onto the ground. Meanwhile the soldiers presented blood wine and he and the 2 deputy commanders drank it all. Behind them the army erupted in cheers. Night fell and the camp was filled with merriment. Fires roasted whole cows and sheep while some soldiers played the Valusi and Chang flute while others engaged in mock combat. With the new commander in office, everyone was rare to enjoy a joyful night. Ding Ning, resting his hand on the long sword, sat in a tiger-skin chair in the central tent, using his helmet as a cup to drink with several deputy commanders. He had already consumed dozens of cups, his complexion unchanged, laughing and chatting heartily. The commanders were secretly amazed. Despite appearing refined, this young gentleman from the capital drank without restraint, leading to greater admiration in their hearts. After 3 rounds of drinking, Ding Ning drew his sword and rose, declaring, "Drinking should not lack the joy of entertainment. I shall dance the sword for you all." Before he finished speaking he floated out of the tent and leaped atop a flagpole 5 zhang high. The crowd, astonished by the general's lightness of foot, gathered around looking up at the flagpole. Ding Ning, sword in hand, howled at the moon, feeling an overwhelming surge of passion, and shouted, "Beat the drums." With the sound of drums the sword light burst forth. On top of the flagpole Ding Ning danced his sword, executing a set of wind-returning sword techniques, while below the audience saw silver light cascading like silver brilliance enveloping the young general, who was met with continuous cheers. Ding Ning paused his sword moves and unleashed another set of assassinate Qin sword techniques. This style of swordplay was inspired by Jing Ke's heroic act of assassinating the Qing king, characterized by grand openings and closings filled with sorrow and desolation, perfectly suiting the battlefield atmosphere. As if sensing his performance, the drummers paused, gradually striking the drums with a heavy and resolute rhythm. The drums played the ancient tune General's Order. With the sword in drum and harmony, Ding Ning was spirited, his sword like a swimming dragon. As the song concluded, the soldiers below saw a flash of white light dart through like lightning. With a whoosh, the white figure in sword light descended, resembling a shooting star across the sky, landing steadily back at the banquet, calmly raising a cup of wine and nodding slightly to those around. The crowd was in awe, their previous doubts about this seemingly delicate youth completely dispelled as they all bowed low, shouting, "General is valorous, renowned in the borders." Ding Ning smiled faintly, continuing to drink heartily with the generals. As the wine flowed, he suddenly seemed to recall something and turned to Deputy Commander Fang Tianyu, asking, "Who was it that beat the drums just now?" Fang Tianyu shook his head. "I do not know, sir." He signaled a soldier, instructing, "Go ask who just struck the drum." The soldier went down and the commanders resumed their drinking. Ding Ning patted Hong Jiang's shoulder, slightly tipsy, and said, "I am young and inexperienced, having just arrived at the frontier. I hope everyone will guide me." Hong Jiang, already drunk, slurred, "Ding. Major General Ding, do not worry. I, Hong Jiang, have served under General Ding for over 20 years. This life belongs to the Ding family." Fang Tianyu also laughed. "We all guard the borders for the court. Naturally we should wholeheartedly support the Major General." The others echoed in agreement. At that moment the soldier returned, reporting, "General, the one who beat the drums earlier was Di Qing." Upon hearing this name, Fang Tianyu seemed startled. Hong Jiang stammered, "Still drunk? That kid is still alive. What a strange matter." Ding Ning asked curiously, "Di Qing? Who is he?" "This person." Fang Tianyu hesitated a bit, "is a jack of all trades, sleeping in the stable, nothing special." Hong Jiang snorted, "That kid has served in the military for several years and should have been promoted long ago. If it weren't for Commander Yu, humph, that old man always nitpicks on him." I heard that this kid offended some official in the capital. The old man deliberately found fault with him the day before he returned to the capital, beating him severely. I haven't seen that kid for days and thought he may have died in the stable. Ding Ning, puzzled, was about to ask further when Fong Tianyu helped Hong Jiang up, laughing. Look at Commander Hong, he's this drunk. Major General, I cannot hold my liquor, so I shall take my leave first. He seemed to prevent Hong Jiang from saying more. Ding Ning also said no more, instead rising to see them off. It was already the 4th watch and the reveling soldiers had entered a deep slumber. Only the lamp in the stable still shone. In the silent and bone-chilling night outside the pass, it was only the station soldiers blowing the Valusi and Chang flute under the moonlight. With no plan to return, the travelers longed for home all night. When will the conflict cease, allowing us to return home? Are you also thinking of home? Under the flickering cold lamp in the stable, a young woman in white sat among the straw, asking a nearby stable hand. A trace of homesickness lingered between her brows. Di Qing sighed softly, falling silent. What is your hometown like? Tell me about it, please, asked Xuehong. My hometown is very poor, poorer than you can imagine. He spoke, his voice flat and bitter. My family has an old mother and elder sister who was married, a cow and 2.5 acres of land. This is considered not the worst in the whole village. Xuehong was taken aback. Then how do you eat? Food. Except for New Year's Eve, we eat coarse grains and wild vegetables every meal throughout the year. Di Qing smiled, his tone devoid of joy or anger. Princess Wei Yang, you might not expect, but your breakfast alone could feed a poor family for half a... Xuehong lowered her head. Do you look down on me, thinking I know nothing? Di Qing sighed. You really shouldn't do such foolish things, leaving the county to come here. There's no need for this, I truly cannot afford it. He rose, adjusting the flickering lamp. I am just an unnamed subordinate, washing horses and doing odd jobs for others, while you are a noble among nobles. His voice had become distant, as if it were 1,000 miles away, like his heart. Xuehong lowered her head and softly said, but I like you. Her voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. The moment she spoke, she frightened herself. She actually said something so shameless. But Di Qing remained indifferent, saying, it's useless, I already have a wife in the countryside, as I have told you before. Xuehong's face turned pale, trembling as she said, I know. But I can't care about that anymore. I just know that being with you one day of happiness is worth it, and the future. I don't want to think too much about it. But I must think it through. Di Qing turned his gaze calm and composed. There is no outcome, Princess Wei Yang. Xuehong's face had turned ashen and her body began to tremble slowly. I can be your concubine. Her voice quivered, almost losing control, but she still uttered this single line. No one knew the torment her heart endured at that moment. Shame, the teachings from childhood told her she had committed an utterly disgraceful act. Di Qing seemed stunned. After a long while he replied calmly, I truly cannot accept that. A poor family does not need multiple wives. Princess Wei Yang, I advise you to return to the capital and do not act recklessly anymore. Xuehong's face turned as white as paper. Her expression was very strange, filled with shame, humiliation, and an irrevocable determination. She stood up, trembling all over as she walked out, as if nothing had happened, softly saying, I will come again tomorrow night. That sentence, she said it calmly, regardless of the humiliation she had decided to endure it. From the moment she violated her promise to her father and secretly escaped from that golden cage, she had resolved to abandon all her former moral lines. You don't need to come again. Please don't come here anymore. Di Qing could no longer contain his low cry, losing the calmness and restraint he had maintained. He muttered in frustration, return to your world, don't disturb me, okay? We are not from the same world. Xuehong had bitten her lip until it bled. In her daze she seemed to hear a sound of shattering. Had the heart of Xuehong been shattered? If so, then she was also doomed to die. All right, I won't come again. She softly said a sentence, gazing at Di Qing with a dazed expression, quietly turning to leave. Di Qing was taken aback. The despair and helplessness in her eyes were shocking. Could it be that she was serious? In that fleeting moment he clearly felt the tremors in his heart. At that time, if she had uttered one more word of pity, he might have lost control completely. However, she did not speak another word of compassion, only giving a dim smile and walking unsteadily toward the door. In a trance, the poem by Letian echoed in her ears. Even if there are parents in the high hall, there are also relatives and friends in the hometown. Yet there is no news from home today. I cannot return due to shame. For your kindness for a day I have ruined my life for 100 years. The poem she read in her early years now pierced her heart word by word. Her heart was as dead as ashes. Perhaps she truly should not have come, should not have betrayed her promise and traveled thousands of miles to follow him. For your kindness for a day I have ruined my life for 100 years. But she could not even obtain a day's tenderness. Yet she had already given everything, even her life, dignity, and kinship. It could not go on like this. She reached out to pull the door, her fingertips trembling slightly. Di Qing's left hand moved, then pressed down with his right hand. Xuehong took a deep breath and opened the door. The snow outside mixed with the raging wind blew against her face. Outside was a cold world. Yet she did not step out, for a person stood at the door. Ding Ning. Snowflakes had already piled thick on his shoulders, indicating he had been standing there for quite some time. Xuehong leaned weakly against the door, feeling utterly drained, yet her heart was numb to any sense of shame. Princess Wei Yang. Perhaps I should call you An or Gully or Xuehong. Ding Ning spoke slowly, his gaze very complex. I heard that you had been seriously ill for years and could not leave the county to marry. Who would have thought you would be here? His face held no expression. No one knew what he meant by his words. Xuehong looked at this man who was supposed to be her husband, suddenly feeling a pang in her heart, inexplicably asking, do I resemble the ice plum? Ding Ning was taken aback, and after a long time he shook his head. Actually you do not. She nodded in relief, softly sighing. My father and their family forced you all apart. I truly feel very. She couldn't finish, suddenly looking up and smiling at Ding Ning. That smile was dreamlike, like a pure plum blooming in the snow. Ding Ning found himself captivated again. Xuehong glanced at Di Cheng, then looked back at Ding Ning, suddenly speaking softly. I'm sorry. I am sorry to both of you. Goodbye. She covered her face with her hands and ran into the vast snowy field. Ding Ning was momentarily stunned. She was already 10 zhang away. Her long pitch-black hair formed a beautiful arc in the wind. The wind blew snow into the stable, causing the lamp to flicker and go out. In the darkness neither Di Cheng nor Ding Ning spoke. The next day Ding Ning went to the giant white stone house outside the city. The wind chimes under the eaves continued to ring loneliness in the wind, but the person beneath the chimes was no longer present. Ding Ning pushed the door into the house. Everything inside remained unchanged. The poem on the wall still read on the mud. Traces occasionally left the swan flies, never to reckon east or west. Now where has the swan flown? He suddenly felt a vague sense of loss deep to the bone. He realized that his sense of loss actually stemmed from her sudden departure. For this past month there had been no sight of An or Gully dancing in the city. In the vast sea of clouds over the snow-capped mountains of Qinghai, a solitary city gazes longingly at the Jade Gate Pass. Amidst the yellow sands 100 battles have worn my golden armor. I shall not return until the Lulan is defeated. In August of this year Ding Ning appointed Di Cheng as Chaocan subordinate to Hong Jiang. At that time the Western Xia tore up the treaty, openly declared themselves emperor, and invaded Yanzhou, where the station commander was afraid of the enemy and avoided battle, resulting in repeated defeats. Ding Ning was ordered to be transferred and temporarily stationed in Yanzhou. In September Di Cheng first accompanied the army on an expedition but achieved no merit. At the end of September, on the second expedition, he killed the Western Xia deputy commander Yili Guxie and was promoted to a vice-general. In November Hong Jiang led troops north to attack Jintang city but was cut off from the return route. Di Cheng successfully broke through with cavalry and launched a counterattack to relieve the siege. At the beginning of December Di Cheng was ordered to launch an expedition for the first time, advancing over 300 miles into the desert and capturing the enemy's main general Hui Luan. Ding Ning and Di Cheng built a bridge in the valley, establishing strongholds at Zhouan, Fenglin and Dalong, effectively controlling the crucial points of the Western Xia's military arrangements. In March of the following year Ding Ning submitted a memorial requesting credit, and the court issued a decree appointing him as vice-commander and bestowing numerous rewards, sending an envoy to deliver gifts to the army and personally convey their thanks, along with a sword named by Jiang. The envoy hurriedly arrived from the capital and Ding Ning led his troops out of the city to welcome them. That evening cheers erupted in the military camp and everyone expressed their gratitude for the emperor's great grace. As the banquet concluded and laughter filled the air, the envoy suddenly chuckled, stood up and pulled out an imperial decree from his sleeve. The imperial decree has arrived. Ding Ning received the decree. Ding Ning was taken aback, immediately kneeling on one knee. This humble subject is present. By the grace of heaven, the emperor decrees, since you have led the troops, the northern border has been stabilized and your military achievements are remarkable. I note that you have already surpassed 20 years of age and thus grant you the emperor's younger sister as your wife. The Princess Wei Yang is beautiful and intelligent, worthy to be your match. You, my dear subject, are busy with military affairs, yet may marry her before the army. So it is decreed. The envoy finished reading the edict and glanced at Ding Ning, perplexed by the lack of joy on his face. Ding Ning knelt there in a daze, a vision of a white-clad maiden's unparalleled dance suddenly flashing through his mind. After a long time he finally spoke. This subject receives the decree. Thank you for the emperor's grace. He found himself uttering those words with great difficulty. He had thought he would never accept such an edict, even if it meant death. As the son of a general, his choices in life were indeed limited. This time volunteering for a remote post was the greatest resistance he could muster. He would rather die in battle than live a life confined within a cage. However, today, when this moment became unavoidable, he thought he would rebel in despair, even resorting to madness, yet he did not. Why? Had he changed somewhat in these 2 years? Did the love he once thought would be etched in his life gradually fade away? Was he truly such a person? He stood up in confusion. The envoy handed him the decree, unable to suppress a smile. General Ding, now you are indeed blessed, having married the most renowned princess of the royal family, the Princess Wei Yang. Ah, it is also said that good things take time. The emperor originally wanted you to marry sooner, but she has been bedridden for nearly 2 years, only recovering suddenly half a year ago. Ding Ning still seemed in a daze, uncertain of how to respond. The envoy thought he was simply stunned by joy. Gesturing towards the east wing, he whispered, the emperor understands your military duties and has granted you the opportunity to marry before the army. Look, the princess has come with the team right over there. Ding Ning could not help but ask, she. Did she agree? What kind of question is that? The envoy laughed. By the emperor's command, how could she not agree? Here, this is a handwritten letter from your father, General Ding, and this is a congratulatory gift from the prince. Both of them are important ministers of the court and cannot leave the capital easily. The old general said that a man must prioritize the country and marriage does not need to be too ostentatious. The prince is also quite understanding, willing to let his daughter endure some hardships. Look over there, a row of 5 carts, a wedding gift from the emperor. Ding Ning turned his head, catching a glimpse of Di Qing. Di Qing was drinking from his helmet and suddenly choked, coughing repeatedly. In the east wing the candlelight glowed warmly and a beautiful silhouette with an elegant hairstyle was reflected on the window. Outside, Ding Ning called out Xuehong. The door opened. A maid in blue opened the door and then retreated. A stunning beauty in palace attire stood by the door, bowing her head slightly. General Ding. As she slowly lifted her head, the familiar face was devoid of its previous expression, as if she had transformed into another person. She had truly changed. So noble and elegant, so poised, indeed reflecting the royal demeanor. She quietly regarded him, lowering her head, and spoke in a flawless noble voice. It is late. General Ding should return now. Ding Ning did not leave. He closed the door and asked Xuehong, have you really returned to the capital? The Princess Wei Yang smiled. Do not call me Xuehong. Xuehong has died. I am the Princess Wei Yang, your fiancée. With the door closed, the words of the Princess Wei Yang changed. Indeed, the beloved had transformed into smoke, never to return. Ice Plum Man. Xuehong. The Princess Wei Yang murmured, I have been ill for 2 years, almost dying. It was only half a year ago that I began to recover. She turned her head, looking at him with a smile that was neither fully a smile nor a frown. You have never seen me before, have you? Her smile bore a hint of cold irony. She had been ill for 2 years. Perhaps during these 2 years she had simply lived as Xuehong. After a long time, Ding Ning finally said, yes, I have never seen you. It was deep into the night and everything was quiet. Only one place still had lights on. In the stable. The stable hand had of course been replaced. The young man from Jiangnan was not as diligent as Di Qing had been in the past. At this moment he had curled up in a pile of hay, dozing off. Suddenly a rustling sound startled him awake. Ha! He opened his mouth wide, stunned. A maiden in white was rolling up her sleeves, washing the horses. Her beauty was beyond description, possessing 3 parts elegance, 3 parts softness, 3 parts dignity, and a touch of celestial grace. Dressed in white like snow, she was performing such a dirty task. Yet she seemed quite skilled at it. Are you human? A demon or a fairy? The stable hand stammered. The maiden in white looked up, smiling strangely. I am here to help you wash the horse. Are you happy? Her voice was soft and affectionate, evoking a sense of unexplainable comfort. The stable hand could not help but say, of course. I'm happy. With such a beautiful person gracing this place, how could he not be happy? The maiden in white sighed. You are better than him, you are better than him. As she lowered her head, 2 tears fell quietly into the dust. Seeing her cry, the stable hand wanted to ask a few concerned questions, but suddenly felt a numbness in his waist, a wave of drowsiness washing over him, and he could not help but close his eyes. The maiden in white continued washing the horse. After a while she placed her hand on the horse's head and said lightly, Di Qing, why don't you come in? She was speaking to the air. The door opened. Outside there was indeed a person, a young general in military attire. Di Qing entered the stable and lit the oil lamp. The flickering light illuminated his face. His face remained handsome, his gaze still bright, the only difference being that he now carried a newfound composure of commanding the world. The Princess Wei Yan wiped her sweat and straightened her back. The two stood facing each other in silence for a long time. The Bai Jiang sword. The Princess Wei Yang noticed the long sword he wore and asked, you have truly made a name for yourself, General Di. Di Qing said nothing, slowly adjusting his emotions, ensuring there would be no mistakes. Perhaps he should not have come tonight, yet he himself did not understand why he unconsciously found his way here, as if he knew she would be present. Perhaps he was hoping she would say something, or he wanted to say something to her. After a long time, Di Qing finally bent down, grabbed a shovel and began to clean. At that moment, if someone saw General Di shoveling the ground and the princess washing the horse, they would surely think they were seeing ghosts. Xuehong, he finally spoke, his voice trembling slightly, I'm sorry. The Princess Wei Yang smiled sadly, stroking the horse's mane, tears streaming down her cheeks. The wind was cold, and as the tears flowed to her cheeks they froze. She slowly said, Xuehong has already died. She had always been asleep until the year she turned 18, when she found herself again. She thought she had enough strength to break the chains that bound her. What she wanted was not much, just freedom and love, yet she could not attain them, so she had to return back to that cage. Because she lost, defeated by me, an unfeeling Princess Wei Yang, so she had to die. Di Qing was at a loss for words, the icy facade in his eyes melting layer by layer, his heart now within reach. He understood that he had been wrong. Xuehong was serious about him, not merely a whim of mischief. He had driven her away with his own hands, effectively destroying that Xuehong. Wei Cheng Hu Chu Bing Li Guang. The shining names in history, Di Qing, do you not wish to be like them? The Princess Wei Yang sneered, a great man should sweep the world, leaving a name in history. Why would he worry about having no wife? Her smile was as cold and beautiful as a snow lotus in an empty valley, yet filled with endless sorrow and disappointment. Di Qing's hands trembled, for she spoke the truth. He had been avoiding this all along because he did not want to get caught in this maelstrom. He had his own path to walk, so he could not attend to Xuehong. Xuehong. He finally could not help but grasp her cold hands. The chill of her hands seeped into his heart. He could even feel her delicate yet resilient hands trembling. He wrapped his warm strong hands around hers. Xuehong. He called her name again, his voice softening with affection. The Princess Wei Yang's hands trembled violently as she said, I am very happy, very happy. Just like this. Hold on for a while longer, just a little while longer. She slightly closed her eyes. Before I tell you something, let me be a little happier for a while longer. The two stood facing each other across a horse, their hands tightly clasped on the horse's back. The wind outside was strong. After a while she opened her eyes, her gaze suddenly becoming clear and resolute. Di Qing, this time I have also brought someone you most wish to see. She has also brought your fiancé, saying she wants you to settle down in the camp. As she spoke she slowly withdrew her hand. She is not very beautiful, but she is virtuous and filial. Your mother has always praised her, saying you are fortunate. She spoke slowly, lowering her head, each word soaked in blood. The wind was cold and her hand was slowly growing colder in the wind. This time Di Qing did not grasp her hand again. He understood that they would never have another chance. He slowly turned around. Thank you, Princess Wei Yang. General Di, you are too polite. She replied lightly. Outside the wind blew fiercely as if to sweep away everything in the world, yet why could it not blow away the heavy misfortune and sorrow that felt like mountains? When morning came, the stable hand awoke, seeing the clean stable, and truly believed he had encountered a fairy last night. Di Qing pushed open the door of the eastern chamber. Mother. His voice trembled slightly. The white-haired Lady Di was chatting with Princess Wei Yang. Upon seeing her son she stood up in surprise and exclaimed, Qinger. Di Qing's heart ached and he dropped to his knees, crawling to his mother's side, bowing his head. Son is unfilial, having left home for 3 years and caused you suffering. Lady Di embraced her son, stroking his hair, tears glimmering in her dim eyes as she choked out, good child, you fought for the country beyond the borders. It is to bring honor to the Di family. Mother, how could you not be happy? Thanks to your future daughter-in-law these past years, Qinger come and meet war. At that moment a young girl carrying tea blushed and hurried to turn away. Princess Wei Yang gently held her back with a smile. Miss Lu, you've waited for 3 years and traveled thousands of miles to be here. Why are you shy upon meeting for the first time? Lady Di pulled War closer while holding her son's hand, her aged face full of smiles. Good things take time. You two are meeting for the first time today. She placed Di Qing's hand onto War's hand. Di Qing's heart sank suddenly, and inexplicable bitterness made him feel almost desperate. Lady Di watched her son and daughter-in-law for a while with a smile, suddenly coming back to her senses and saying repeatedly, look at me, I'm getting old and— Qinger, it was Princess Wei Yang who brought us here, so you should thank her. Di Qing turned around and bowed slowly. This subordinate thanks Princess Wei Yang greatly. Princess Wei Yang modestly smiled and returned the courtesy. General Di is too kind, what merit do I have? They exchanged polite words, yet their eyes never met. In that moment of silence it felt like an eternity. Lady Di, completely unaware, continued smiling. Qinger, our family has finally reunited. You are not young anymore and I want to arrange your marriage with War as soon as possible. Mother is lonely in her old age and truly wishes to hold a grandchild soon. War blushed, stealing glances at her fiancé, joy and contentment blooming on her face. Young and handsome, valiant and courageous, all of this made her from a humble farming background feel ecstatic. Her hardships over the years had not been in vain. She may not have been exceptionally beautiful, but she possessed a rustic charm that was simple and natural. Di Qing's grip on the sword tightened, his knuckles turning white. Yet he still respectfully said in a low voice, I will follow mother's instructions on everything. Lady Di smiled and said, I knew you would listen to your mother. At that moment Princess Wei Yang's pale face revealed a faint smile as she interjected, old lady, since I am also about to marry soon, why not arrange both weddings together? Lady Di was taken aback, shaking her head repeatedly. How can this be? You are a princess marrying into a general's family. It is a grand wedding conferred by the emperor. How can we country folk stand on equal footing? Princess Wei Yang gently replied, it's fine this way, it will be more convenient, after all everything is ready. Old lady, please give Princess Wei Yang some face. Her voice was irresistibly gentle. Lady Di, unable to decline, could only smile and say, the princess is truly modest. Qinger, War, why aren't you thanking the princess? Di Qing and War bowed together. Thank you, princess. Princess Wei Yang smiled, returned the courtesy, but her face was already frighteningly pale. Seeing her snow-white complexion, pain flashed across Di Qing's eyes once more. Lady Di exclaimed in surprise, Princess, your complexion is terrible. Your health is important, we must quickly call a doctor to check on you. Princess Wei Yang smiled weakly and waved her hand, saying, it's nothing, just a bit cold from the snow outside. I will go back and put on another piece of clothing. As she spoke she stood up. Lady Di hurriedly said, Qinger, quickly see the princess off. I will go back and put on another piece of clothing. As she spoke she stood up. Lady Di hurriedly— At the camp entrance Princess Wei Yang stopped, slightly raising her head to look at the white snow falling from the sky, quietly saying, it's the end, you should go back now. A trace of sorrowful smile appeared on her pale face. General Di, congratulations to you. Di Qing also slowly replied, and congratulations to you. Snowflakes gracefully fell upon her bright red attire, resembling red plums in the snow. The two exchanged glances, suddenly revealing a sorrow deeper than mountains and seas. The road ended here. Di Qing suddenly felt as if he had become the king of Western Chu 1,000 years ago, helplessly watching Yuji take her own life at the end of a desperate path. Yushi, what can be done? These past few days the entire camp has been busy preparing for the weddings of the chief and deputy commanders. Marrying in the battlefield, suddenly there were two pairs of newlyweds. It could not be denied that it was a delightful story. But who knows how much bitterness and sorrow lay hidden behind this so-called delightful story. Under the eaves of the Baishar house the wind chimes gently chimed in the breeze. "Did you come here after I left?" Princess Weiyang softly asked a young general in military attire beside her. Ding Ning nodded, feeling inexplicably awkward. "It seems we are truly fated and cannot be separated. No matter what happens we must still marry." Princess Weiyang smiled bitterly. Her gaze had grown as faint as the white clouds. "In the future I do not seek anything from you. I only hope we can coexist peacefully and maintain some dignity for the general's residence and the prince's estate." Ding Ning rested his hand on his sword, gazing far into the northern sky, slowly saying, "I have not thought of starting a family since Bing my suicide. But the emperor's orders cannot be disobeyed, so I had to request to be stationed at the border to escape." He looked down and smiled at Princess Weiyang sitting under the wind chimes, yet his smile bore an indescribable grief. "To speak the truth, the day I received the order to march I made a decision: die in battle and never return to marry." Princess Weiyang smiled bitterly. "But you did not expect to meet me as soon as you entered Jiuquan County. It truly is a celestial net, one cannot escape anywhere." Ding Ning smiled. The two exchanged smiles, yet each bore different thoughts. Though they were together, their hearts were elsewhere. "All right," Princess Weiyang stood up, taking Ding Ning's hand, "let us marry. Let everyone be satisfied and our parents at ease. After all, we cannot go against the entire family and dynasty." The wind howled as the general hunted in Weichang. At the southern foot of the Daqing mountain the military flags flew high and trumpets blared. Ding Ning and Di Qing galloped together, accompanied by angels out hunting. Di Chong leaned down, drawing an arrow and shooting it into the sky. With the sound of the bowstring a large goose fell in response, the arrow piercing both its eyes. Deputy Commander Di, great skill. The angel's plump figure could barely sit steadily on the horse, almost falling off several times. He took a breath and laughed. "I did not expect two young ones to possess such unmatched courage. Blessed by the heavens, these young heroes shall ensure the border remains worry-free from now on." He laughed heartily. "It's a pity General Di already has a wife, otherwise I would definitely request the emperor to match him with a beauty. Heroes and beauties make for timeless tales, haha." Ding Ning and Di Qing exchanged glances, galloping in silence, each of them speechless. At that moment a swift sound of whoosh echoed as an arrow zipped past them. A fierce roar erupted from the forest as a clouded leopard leaped out, crazed, darting around the hunting ground, attacking anyone it saw. The angel was so frightened that he trembled, nearly falling from his horse. Ding Ning and Di Qing quickly shielded him, one on each side. At that moment two sharp sounds of whoosh rang out as two feathered arrows flew forth, hitting the leopard squarely in both eyes. The arrows possessed immense force, going through its eyes and piercing through the back of its skull, instantly killing the clouded leopard. "Excellent archery!" Ding Ning and Di Qing both exclaimed in praise simultaneously. Not far away a young woman dressed in yellow adorned with silver ornaments was slowly lowering her bow and arrow. With her flowing black hair she was as beautiful as a saint on a distant mountain. Judging from her attire she seemed to be a noble lady of a foreign tribe. Princess Pipa, the second daughter of the king of Gaochang, greets the angel of great song and the two generals. She dismounted and knelt on one knee on the ground, gracefully saying, "May the great song emperor live long, and may the friendship between our two nations last for eternity." Ding Ning glanced at the angel, who was still trembling and could not utter a word, feeling greatly unimpressed, so he dismounted to help her up, saying lightly, "Princess, there is no need for such formality." Princess Pipa stood up, her deep blue eyes lightly sweeping over his face, saying, "Thank you, General." Ding Ning mounted his horse and rode alongside her. "General Ding is so young yet has already made a name at the border. I truly admire you." Princess Pipa, while slowing her horse, smiled and spoke, "I heard that the general is about to marry soon. May I ask which daughter of which family is fortunate enough to have such a husband?" Only then did the angel regain composure, interjecting, "Oh, General Ding's future wife is a renowned beauty from the royal family. It was arranged personally by the emperor." Princess Pipa lightly said, "Oh," with a somewhat strange expression, "that truly is a match worthy of General Ding." The angel was greatly surprised to see that the one who took down the clouded leopard was actually a young girl. "People say that the Hu people are born to ride and hunt. I have finally seen it with my own eyes today." Princess Pipa smiled gracefully. "You flatter me. My father heard that the angel of the great song has arrived at the border and specially sent me to pay my respects. Moreover, I also brought gifts to celebrate the new marriage of the two generals." Her beautiful eyes sparkled with delight as she fixed her gaze on Ding Ning. "General Ding, I am very eager to see the beautiful bride." Ding Ning felt a bit embarrassed under her gaze, turning to exchange a glance with Di Qing, and said to her, "Then Princess, please honor us with your presence at tonight's wedding." Princess Pipa laughed, of course. The camp was already decorated with lanterns and streamers. A festive atmosphere filled the air and soldiers were seen slaughtering cattle and sheep, preparing food. Yin Shui had followed her lady to the camp this time. Looking at the vast space she could not help but exclaim, "Heavens, there is such a big place in the world with so many people. It is really remarkable how that son-in-law of the Ding family can manage it all." Princess Weiyang remained silent, her gaze vacant as she looked up to the sky. In the blue sky a pair of eagles soared, flying side by side, battling in the open air. How free and unrestrained. She sighed in her heart. She too wished to fly freely like that, yet ultimately could not escape, because outside there was simply no sky for her. Her gaze returned to the courtyard where Wu was washing clothes for the old lady. She rolled up her sleeves, deftly working her simple and natural face, always adorned with a sweet smile. She wanted little yet she had received everything she desired. Princess Wei Yan looked up at the sky suddenly hearing the urgent sound of a bowstring as a feathered arrow shot through the air. One of the eagles let out a piercing cry as it fell from the sky. Her hand trembled shattering the teacup. She hurried outside hearing the sorrowful cries from above as the other eagle circled in the sky unable to bear leaving. Princess Wei Yan's face turned pale, her heart filled with inexplicable pain. Princess is truly exceptional in archery, she is worthy of being a child of the desert, the angel was praising endlessly. The soldiers below picked up the dead eagle and Princess Peepa presented it to the angel with both hands. According to our humble customs, offering the prey to nobles is the best way to show loyalty. My lord, please accept it. The angel laughed heartily, preparing to reach out to accept it when suddenly a strong wind swooped down from above and in an instant a huge shadow passed overhead. Everyone was startled as they saw the eagle dive down carrying away the corpse of its mate. The angel's hat was knocked off, leaving him momentarily in a very awkward situation. Princess Peepa frowned, a hint of anger appearing on her face as she shouted, "Beast, you are rude." Drawing an arrow from her quiver, she nocked it and aimed at the eagle. The bow was drawn like a full moon. Suddenly there was a sharp snap and the bow in her hand unexpectedly broke its string. The Peepa princess was taken aback. This bow had accompanied her for nearly 5 years without any damage, yet today without excessive force it broke for no apparent reason. A cloud of suspicion rose in her heart, rendering her momentarily speechless. The angel, thinking she was embarrassed, quickly smiled and said, "Why should the princess be upset over a few insignificant birds?" At that moment they had arrived at the camp entrance and everyone dismounted to walk. By the camp gate stood two women. One was dressed in a bright red Zhao Jun cloak, stunningly beautiful with a noble demeanor, gazing thoughtfully at the large eagle flying away in the sky. The other, a young girl in servant attire clad in blue, held a guzheng standing behind her. "Princess Wei Yang, it's rare for you to come out for a stroll today." After dismounting, the angel greeted her, though with a hint of disdain. How could a young noblewoman of the Song dynasty casually appear in public? What kind of education was the county lord providing his daughter? Was she still regarded as a model within the imperial family? Princess Wei Yan watched the giant eagle fly away, her gaze slowly returning, and saw the bow and arrow in the Peepa princess' hand, a faint smile appearing at the corner of her mouth. The one who shot the eagle just now must be this heroic lady, right? The Peepa princess smiled and said, "You flatter me, your highness." Yet a shadow flickered in her eyes. Princess Wei Yan looked at her and sighed. "I didn't expect that even in this desolate borderland there would be such a beauty." The princess is indeed both talented and beautiful, truly admirable. As she spoke she turned away, not even bothering to greet the others. The angel was greatly surprised by her behavior. After all, Princess Wei Yan was known in the imperial family for her unmatched beauty and her knowledge of propriety, yet today she appeared utterly indifferent to etiquette, which was quite shocking. The Peepa princess was also taken aback, her gaze inexplicably shadowed. She then turned to Ding Ning and smiled. "Is this the future general's wife? She is truly as beautiful as a celestial being with an extraordinary demeanor. General Ding, I am determined to drink to your wedding feast this time." Princess Wei Yan was lost in thought. During this time she often found herself lost in thought alone. The sky remained vast, yet there were no traces of flying birds. Ding ding. The sound of chimes caught her attention. She turned her head and saw that a string of silver wind chimes had been hung under the eaves at some point. A young general in military attire turned his head from under the eaves and said lightly, "I sent someone to fetch this from the stone house." Princess Wei Yan replied faintly, "Thank you." "I want to ask you a question," Ding Ning said. "What is it? Why did the bowstring of the Peepa princess suddenly snap just now?" he asked with a half smile. Princess Wei Yang smiled and replied, "Do you suspect it was me?" Ding Ning nodded. "Among those present besides you I can't think of anyone else who would do such a thing." After a long pause Princess Wei Yang finally nodded and said, "It was I who cut the string." She took out a thin sheet of gold leaf from her bosom, holding it delicately between her snowy white fingers. Ding Ning's gaze flickered. "Good skill. I didn't expect you to be such a hidden expert." Princess Wei Yang smiled lightly. "There is much you do not yet know. Feel free to discover it slowly in the future." Ding Ning fell silent for a long time before asking, "Why did you save that eagle just now?" "Because it resembles me, wanting to fly out of the cage, soaring freely yet still shot down by someone." Princess Wei Yang spoke softly. "In truth, I cannot escape at all. Even if I were to miraculously break free, there would be no sky outside to accommodate me, and in the end I would still be forced back into the cage, obediently complying with others' arrangements." She looked up with a bitter smile, pointing to War outside, who was hanging clothes to dry. "Though she is just an ordinary commoner, she is envied greatly." Princess Wei Yang spoke softly. "In truth, I cannot escape at all. Even if I were to miraculously break free, there would be no sky outside to accommodate me, and in the end I would still be forced back into the— We are not yet married. If you keep coming to my room every few days, people will think I have no upbringing," Princess Wei Yang said with a bitter smile. "Of course, some might think we are very affectionate," she said sarcastically, her gaze turning vacant again. Ding Ning picked up a chopstick and threw it at a quiver hanging on the wall, casually stating, "You also said that we could never contend against the entire family or the entire dynasty. If that's the case, why not just go with the flow?" As he spoke he continuously threw chopsticks into the quiver. Yet his expression also bore an indescribable loneliness and confusion. At that moment someone outside reported, "General Ding, your highness, it is time for lunch." As Ding Ning and Princess Wei Yang stepped out they saw Di Qing and War also emerging from the east wing. War, half shy and half excited, was saying something to him while Di Qing listened with a gentle expression, saying nothing. Both pairs of people paused on the path. Ding Ning looked at Di Qing, his gaze filled with profound meaning. War, however, was untroubled upon seeing Princess Wei Yang. She quickly lowered her head to pay her respects. I greet the princess. She had always been grateful to Princess Wei Yang for bringing her and her mother-in-law to the border. To the daughter of a farmer, this noble lady seemed as beautiful and approachable as a fairy from the heavens. Princess Wei Yang smiled and took her hand, saying, look, your hands are all cracked from washing clothes. I told you not to do it yourself, just let the servants handle it. The two chatted and laughed as they walked away. The northern wind was strong, making the military flags flutter. All around, the horns in the camp sounded resonant and majestic. Ding Ning and Di Qing walked side by side on the path. After a while, Ding Ning finally spoke. The day after tomorrow is the wedding day. Di Qing slowly replied, don't you find this rather amusing? But people outside say it's a match made in heaven. Ding Ning's smile was somewhat bleak. Thinking of the wedding night ahead, both of these great generals felt that they would rather be on the battlefield. Heaven played a cruel joke, yet no one could laugh about it. Have you heard of the old man under the moon? Ding Ning turned to ask Di Qing. It is said that once he ties a red thread around a pair of mortals, those poor souls will inevitably become husband and wife no matter what. And the only way to untie this red thread is for one of the two to die. He smiled bitterly. I wonder if we both become those pitiful creatures. Ding Ning said as he slowly lowered his head, gazing at the long sword in his hand, and slowly said, this sword has accompanied the Ding family for 2 generations on the battlefield for 30 years, stained with the blood of the Tuyuan Khan and the Khitan royal family. Yet it cannot sever that red thread. Di Qing also lowered his head, looking at the sword in his hand. A look of pain flashed across his steadfast and heroic face. Neither she nor I have any other choice. As the son of a military family, I cannot abandon my ideals and my family. She feels the same way. But what about you? Why do you not resist? Why must you force yourself like this? Ding Ning stared at him, asking each word deliberately. Benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, trust, loyalty, and filial piety, none of these can I violate. This is what my mother taught me since childhood. Ding Ning remained silent for a long time before nodding and saying, indeed. If you were to undermine state affairs for personal feelings, that would be disloyal. If you were to oppose your mother's orders, that would be unfilial. If you were to break an engagement, that would be untrustworthy. If you were to overstep your station and damage your clan's reputation, that would be disrespectful. You would never become such a person. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he turned his head and coldly stared at Di Qing, saying each word slowly, but betraying Xuehong is unjust. Indeed, Di Qing gazed at the sword in his hand, also replying word by word, but I, Di Qing, would rather destroy my minor principles than harm the greater cause. Princess Wei Yang sat cross-legged under the eaves, her hands gently resting on the guzheng. Her fingers were as delicate as bright jade. The clouds were light and the breeze was gentle, causing the wind chimes under the eaves to softly ring. As the sound of the bells faded, the music of the guzheng began. The music flowed like water, as if a traveler returning home after a long journey glimpsed his wife's tender eyes upon pushing the door open. It also evoked the feeling of standing on a high mountain in flowing robes facing a precipice with the wind howling around. However, suddenly the guzheng produced a fierce sound, almost splitting metal and stone. In the midst of the clashing tones there was an underlying aura of battle, as if thousands of cavalry had gathered, swords raised and armies clashing. The sound of the strings grew increasingly urgent and higher, until suddenly with a zhang sound the string snapped and the melody ceased. Princess Wei Yang pressed one hand on the guzheng strings while the other clutched her chest, coughing slightly, a trace of blood already seeping from the corner of her mouth. What a magnificent piece, 10 sides ambushed. There is a hint of grandeur, too bad it was a bit too hasty and high, unable to last long. General D is also knowledgeable about music. I dare not claim that I am merely a martial man occasionally listening and speaking a few random words. Princess Wei Yang stroked the guzheng and sighed. In the past, during the siege at Haixia, the heroes met their end and the beauty took her own life. Centuries later, to play this tune again still stirs the heart, evoking memories of the fierce battles of that time. The voice behind her paused for a moment before slowly saying, in truth, who is different when parting with a heavy heart? Such feelings have been the same since ancient times, thus the tunes resonate together. Princess Wei Yang did not respond. Suddenly she plucked the strings and sang, the Han soldiers have taken the land, surrounded by the sounds of Chu songs. The king's spirit is exhausted, what hope is there for this lowly maid? The lament of Yuji from 1,000 years ago sung from her lips carried an unbearable despair. No one spoke behind. She knew Di Qing had already left. In parting with a heavy heart, who was different? Was he the same? Was he also grieving? She did not know. She slowly lowered her hand and there was already a pool of deep red blood on her white garment. She also knew that her illness had been worsening day by day. In the twilight she heard the cries of geese high in the sky, with horns sounding continuously, causing her to cough violently. The wind and sand outside were fierce. As the wind blew at night, it felt like a knife cutting against the skin. She coughed up blood. Your Highness, the wind and sand outside have grown stronger, take care of your health. A voice suddenly rang out behind her. It was a caring statement, yet there was no warmth in the tone, instead carrying an indescribable sharpness. Princess Wei Yang abruptly looked up and saw a young girl in a yellow dress with green feathers, radiant and spirited. The Peepa Princess. There was a strange look in the Peepa Princess' eyes. Had she overheard her conversation with Di Qing? Why was she so focused on herself? Why did she carry such an expression? For some reason Princess Wei Yang had never taken a liking to her. Perhaps it was because she had shot that eagle. That eagle which should have been the king of birds free and unrestrained. Is the princess' health not well? The Peepa princess asked, a hint of a smile in her eyes. Princess Wei Yang replied indifferently, I have always been weak. For the past 2 years I have been bedridden with illness. Although there was some improvement half a year ago, the root of the illness has yet to be resolved. As she spoke, she wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Only one person knew that her illness was born in her heart. 2 years ago she had been such a lively and healthy girl filled with hope for life and the future. The Peepa princess chuckled, her cold light in her eyes growing stronger. So the princess traveled thousands of miles even while ill to marry in the borderlands. It is indeed a profound affection. I truly admire it. The sarcasm and hostility in her words were unmistakable to Princess Wei Yang. But why did she speak like that? Could it be that she already knew it was she who had cut her bowstring? The Peepa princess took out a box from her bosom and handed it over, saying lightly, Congratulations on your happy union, a humble gift, please accept it. After saying this she turned and left without looking back. Once she had walked far away, Princess Wei Yang opened the box and her face instantly turned pale. Inside the box was a sheet of gold leaf and also 2 eagles' claws. Claws stained with blood. The auspicious hour has finally arrived and the camp is filled with joyous laughter and decorations everywhere. The angel dressed in formal attire sits in the hall, evidently taking on the role of the officiant. Di Chang and Ding Ning have also changed out of their battle gear and donned bright red auspicious robes. The tall red candles create an atmosphere of elegance and warmth in this battlefield usually filled with soldiers. Why hasn't the bride come out yet? The angel asked impatiently. She is still getting ready. Go urge her, commanded the angel. A civil official reported back, I just went to urge her, but a group of playful ones blocked the door, saying that according to the rules the bride must write a poem to hasten her makeup before they will let her out. The official scratched his head and stammered, but it's been a long while and there hasn't been any poem coming from the room. Di Chang, although not looking in that direction, listened intently to the entire conversation. His expression suddenly changed, a wave of inexplicable fear rushing over him. He looked up at Ding Ning, who was also looking at him. Suddenly everyone in the hall felt a red shadow move and the 2 generals were no longer in the hall. Outside the bridal chamber there were still many people gathered playfully requesting poems, but the door remained tightly shut. Ding Ning and Di Ching exchanged a glance, rushed forward and simultaneously struck to break the door latch, rushing inside together. Inside the room it was indeed empty. The jewelry on the dressing table was still there while several bridesmaids were already in disarray, the smell of blood filling the entire bridal chamber. On the dressing table lay a poem, You need not make a fuss, a lifetime of good fortune lies in this night. The weaver girl of the Milky Way pauses her weaving, already prepared for the Magpie Bridge. The ink on the poem was still wet, indicating that the hastening poem had just been completed and not yet delivered when calamity struck the bridal chamber. The onlookers surged in, and upon seeing such a tragic scene they were all dumbfounded. Her martial skills are not weak, yet it is clear she had no chance to fight back. It is certain that the assailant must be someone familiar. Ding Ning said word by word, his brow heavy with worry. At this moment Di Ching heard that his mother was still alive and let out a breath of relief, slowly saying it could be her. Who? Ding Ning asked. Before Di Ching could answer, a commotion outside was heard and a person rushed in. He stumbled, covered in blood, breathing heavily, clearly gravely injured. Commander Hong, someone nearby exclaimed, quickly supporting him. Commander Hong gasped, hurriedly speaking in fragmented sentences. Fong Tianyu, is that brat colluding with the enemy? Rebellion. He turned, pointing northwest, panting heavily, the Khitan have allied with Gao Chang. Revolting. General, hurry, hurry. He could not catch his breath and immediately fell silent. Ding Ning and Di Ching did not hesitate any longer, shouting, sound the drums for alarm, prepare for battle immediately. The 2 rushed out of the bridal chamber, tore off their new garments, quickly donned their armor and left the camp to observe. In the face of national crisis all personal matters suddenly seemed irrelevant. Ding Ning turned to Di Ching, saying, You take 1,000 men to occupy the position, I will gather the troops and come immediately. Remember, this battle can only advance, not retreat. Di Ching slowly pulled down his bronze mask. This was his habit when going to battle. Due to his overly handsome appearance lacking in a fierce aura, he must wear this terrifying bronze mask when killing enemies on the battlefield. He slowly raised his sword, the Baijiang sword, and nodded at Ding Ning. Then he mounted his horse and commanded, 2,000 as the vanguard formed the tiger-elephant formation and advanced slowly, 2,000 as the rear guard formed the long snake formation to block the enemy behind. Set off. After Ding Ning gave his instructions, he rushed onto the command platform and personally beat the drum to gather the troops. The drumbeat was slow yet resolute, echoing outwards. The officers and soldiers who were initially cheering and drinking chaotically suddenly fell silent as if a sword had struck. In no time all the troops had gathered. Ding Ning turned around and said, Tonight the Khitan army will attack, prepare the horses for battle. The commanding general immediately turned to issue orders, but upon hearing the command to set off it echoed into 10 orders, then into hundreds and thousands, the voices growing louder yet maintaining order without any panic. As the army assembled, Ding Ning mounted his horse ready to set off when suddenly the war drums sounded violently from behind the camp and flames erupted. Everyone turned their heads in unison to see the fodder yard behind the camp engulfed in flames. Without supplies the army cannot function. The fodder yard has always been a crucial point for the military. Losing this place will immediately shake the morale of the troops. Ding Ning felt a rush of shock as he heard a scout report Deputy Commander Fong has rebelled and defected to the enemy, setting fire to the fodder yard and launching a counterattack. The troops were even more alarmed. Fong Tianyu was also a key general commanding 50,000 elite soldiers guarding the rear. Once he revolted and joined forces with the Khitan, the danger would be immense. Ding Ning remained calm in the face of change, slowly issuing orders, change the rear troops to the front, attack south. The command spread in 30,000 soldiers split into the front, left, right and rear formations with additional small teams scattered on the flanks. The sound of armor clanging echoed as they advanced southward. The soldiers saw the enemy's forces like a mountain, understanding that tonight their lives were uncertain, but having always been loyal to the Song, they could only fight to the death. After marching about 10 miles, they spotted a large number of troops. The leading general was none other than Fong Tianyu. Ding Ning reined in his horse, shouting sternly, "Rebel, the court has treated you well, why betray and harm it?" Fong Tianyu laughed loudly. Ding Ning, I have fought on the battlefield for over 20 years, shedding blood for the great Song, yet I am merely a deputy commander. You, a mere child from a military family, have become a general at the first opportunity. Is this fair? The Khitan have promised me the position of Grand Marshal. How does that compare to the great Song? Ding Ning ceased responding, and with a wave of his right hand the order was given, and the soldiers on both flanks advanced slowly. The two armies faced each other in formation. Among the enemy's ranks the drums beat fiercely, suddenly parting left and right to reveal hundreds of prisoners. Most of these were dressed as commoners, men and women of all ages being pushed to the ground. Fong Tianyu sneered, "Press the families of the enemy soldiers into battle." Upon hearing this, the Song army was instantly thrown into disarray. It should be known that the troops stationed at Yumengwan are mostly long-term residents of the area. Except for a portion being criminals from the border, most have already settled down here. Now seeing the enemy pushing out so many civilians, dragging children and wives, creating chaos, how could the soldiers not be alarmed? A rider under Fong Tianyu's command galloped out to the battlefield shouting, "Great Song soldiers, listen, your families have been taken, and those who surrender can reunite with their families and be promoted 3 ranks. If you do not surrender, you will be killed without mercy." Some soldiers in the Song army recognized their relatives, hesitating, unsure of what to do. Ding Ning's eyes flickered, knowing the situation was critical. If anyone wavered, the army would collapse like a mountain. Fong Tianyu's tactic aimed to undermine the morale of his own troops, and his threats to kill prisoners were certainly serious. At this moment there was another uproar from the high platform as a group of people was dragged out. Most of these were women dressed in fine clothing, indicating they were not ordinary civilians. These were the wives and children of the great Song generals. Dozens of soldiers drew their long knives, pressing them against the necks of the captives. Fong Tianyu sneered coldly, "If you do not surrender, we will start killing." With this the morale of the army further wavered. Many soldiers began whispering to each other, while most of the generals looked toward their commander. Ding Ning's gaze was resolute. He knew that at this moment he had to remain calm. Fong Tianyu raised his hand, and a woman in red was brought forward wearing a bright red wedding dress. Princess Wei Yang. Many in the Song army gasped in disbelief. Even the general's wife had fallen into enemy hands. "Ding Ning, will you surrender or not?" Fong Tianyu ordered his soldiers to hold the knife to Princess Wei Yang's neck and demanded an answer. Princess Wei Yang's hair was disheveled, her clothes in disarray, yet her gaze was as steadfast as the stars, proclaiming loudly, "General, do not worry about your family. A true man should die for his country." Upon hearing her words, some of the wavering Song soldiers fell silent, turning to look at Ding Ning, wanting to know how their commander would respond. In that moment, on a battlefield of tens of thousands, an extraordinary silence fell. Ding Ning slowly lifted his gaze and shouted, "You die for the Song and you shall have no regrets." As soon as his voice fell, he drew his bow and shot an arrow. The arrow sped swiftly, directly aimed at Princess Wei Yang. The arrow struck her in the head and she immediately fell to the ground. The army stood solemnly, tears welling up in their eyes, feeling a deep sense of solemnity. Meanwhile, many of the enemy's generals' wives and children began to cry out in panic. Ding Ning raised his Tianjian sword, shouting fiercely, "Kill all the women who are crying out." Suddenly the sound of arrows whistling rang out. Over a dozen arrows flew out, striking down those who cried out, instantly silencing any further shouts. On the battlefield there was a sudden stillness. Ding Ning turned to his soldiers, his gaze flashing with a terrifying light, and shouted word by word, "Today death in battle is for the country. If you survive, it is also for the country." Seeing that the enemy was not intimidated, Fong Tianyu immediately abandoned the captives and launched an attack on the Song army. Ding Ning, undeterred, swiftly commanded his troops to engage. The place instantly transformed into a scene of slaughter, flags waving, soldiers rushing about, the sounds of battle ringing out. Amidst the chaos, a runaway horse galloped through the battlefield, yet it was riderless. As the horse sped closer, suddenly a figure darted out, moving like a ghost among the horses, approaching swiftly. Arriving near, with the twang of a bowstring, 3 arrows shot toward Fong Tianyu in rapid succession. Fong Tianyu was startled, raising his whip to strike the arrows. He was highly skilled in this technique, but the arrows contained a hint of internal power, numbing his arm. He knocked down 1 arrow, but before he could return his whip, the second arrow was upon him. This arrow pierced through his left side, exiting through his chest, and his soldiers nearby could not react in time to protect him. In the sudden chaos, both sides of the battle were momentarily caught off guard. The assailant jumped off the horse and severed Fong Tianyu's head, holding it high, and shouted loudly to the surroundings, "The leader has fallen, surrender if you wish to live." Everyone was stunned. This person with long red hair was actually the supposedly dead Princess Wei Yang. It turned out she possessed extraordinary skills. When Ding Ning shot the arrow, she had bitten down on the arrow shaft, feigning death. Once the attention of the crowd shifted, she silently revived and stealthily approached Fong Tianyu, landing a successful blow. Ding Ning would not let this opportunity slip. He pointed with his whip and the army surged forward. Amidst the tumultuous soldiers, the two galloped closer, silently watching each other. In that brief moment they had traversed from life to death, only to reunite after calamity, feeling a complex mix of emotions as if they were in a different world. "I think you will remember that I know martial arts." Princess Wei Yan finally smiled and said, "It seems my guess was correct." That arrow Ding Ning had aimed for her teeth, which allowed for such perfect coordination. "To put you in such great danger, it truly." He expressed some fear, murmuring, "I was really afraid I wouldn't aim correctly and accidentally shot you dead." Princess Wei Yan smiled. "To die for the court is glorious and dignified. How wonderful. We could both be liberated in one fell swoop." She lowered her head slightly and smiled, yet her eyes were as sorrowful as water. Ding Ning did not know what to say, only gripping the reins tightly in silence. "What about Di Cheng?" After a long while Princess Wei Yang asked, "Why hasn't he come?" "He has already led his troops to resist the Khitan forces," Ding Ning replied. "Good, I will go help him." Princess Wei Yang turned her horse around. Ding Ning nodded, saying, "Right now I cannot leave this side. Tell him to hold on a little longer and I will lead my troops to assist him immediately." At this critical moment of impending war he had no time to say more, just gave her a glance before spurring his horse into the battlefield. Princess Wei Yan watched him leave her hand, gripping the reins, trembling unconsciously. As Ding Ning entered the battlefield, his expression as he looked back at their parting seemed to carry a hint of concern and care. He is her husband. She sighed inwardly. But what feelings could they have for each other? Their marriage was originally out of necessity, and each had their own beloved, even willing to threaten death to resist. Yet upon meeting they realized the other was not as detestable as initially imagined. Perhaps all the aversion was just preconceived notions. However, everything has already come to this. Irretrievable. As Princess Wei Yang galloped, she sighed. Ding Ning would surely never forget Bing Mei, but how could she forget Di Cheng? Even if they were truly married by decree in the future, being close in proximity yet distant in heart for both of them, would it not be a kind of torment that lasts until death? Part 3 Section 1. At the eastern gate of Luntai I bid farewell to you while snow blankets the road to Tianshan. As the mountains turn and twist you are no longer in sight, leaving only the traces of your horse upon the snow. At this moment Di Cheng found himself in an extremely perilous situation. As he rushed northwest for over 100 miles he suddenly encountered an ambush by the Khitan army. He ordered his troops to retreat in formations, but due to the darkness of night some of his generals, having been bribed by the Khitans, intentionally misled their troops. Unbeknownst to them the entire army ended up retreating into a valley. As the Song army entered the valley a sudden drumbeat reverberated and torches on the cliffs burst into flames. Beneath the torches the Khitan flag was illuminated, and among the gathered troops stood the Khitan left sage King Yeluchong Yuan. Beside him was a woman in a yellow dress who was none other than the Pipa princess. Di Cheng gripped his sword and looked around, only to see that a few yards away in the valley it was pitch dark and most of the soldiers were already showing signs of retreat. He decisively ordered, "Light the torches for illumination." Di Cheng, the left sage king commanding a great army, looked down at the anxious Song troops in the valley and laughed. "You have long claimed to be invincible on the battlefield, yet look at you today. What now? Surrender." Di Cheng coldly replied, "To die wrapped in horsehide is the honor of a true man. Why say more?" Very well. The left sage king waved his right hand and a red-dressed young girl was brought forth, smirking slightly. "Then you don't want your wife either." With a whoosh the soldiers on either side drew their long knives and held them against War's neck. Having never encountered such a scene, War immediately burst into tears. The left sage king felt somewhat triumphant. "Di Cheng, you vainly call yourself a hero. How could your wife be so useless?" He paused and continued, "Di Cheng, I have heard that you come from humble beginnings, once serving as a horse groom. There is an ancient saying among the Han people, one must not forget friends made in poverty, and a wife of humble origins should not be cast aside. Can you bear to see her torn apart by knives?" Di Cheng's fingers slowly tightened around the sword hilt, but with the mask on no one could see the expression on his face. After a long while he finally spoke softly, "The Han people also have a saying, those who pursue great matters do not concern themselves with trivialities. For the nation's great cause one must sacrifice personal feelings. Left sage king, if you kill my family it only compels me to vow the destruction of the Khitan. It is of no help in today's situation." The Pipa princess sneered, "I'm afraid you have no personal feelings for her at all. Your generosity today stems from public pretenses." She pointed her whip towards the southwestern corner and laughed loudly. "Di Cheng, General Fong has already cut off your way back. I fear your princess of Wei Yang has long since met her demise on the battlefield." Everyone was startled and turned their heads only to see flames erupting from the southwestern direction. "The fodder yard is on fire!" someone shouted, causing immediate chaos among the troops. Moreover, some soldiers concerned for their wives and children lost all desire to fight. Di Cheng looked back at the camp, his hand holding the reins trembled slightly. "Princess of Wei Yang. Xuehong, dead. Dead." An uncontrollable wave of anger and sorrow surged within him. He unsheathed his sword in bellowed attack. "Those who retreat shall be executed." The Pipa princess sneered, "If you wish to fight, then fight. Are you afraid of me?" She swung her sword horizontally and a cold flash appeared. War let out a tragic scream and fell to the ground. Ha ha, Di Qing, let your new bride's blood first serve to appease my blade. The left Sage King laughed heartily. Di Qing gritted his teeth, his hands trembling. After all, War was his nominal wife, having taken care of his mother for many years and endured much hardship for the Di family. Now she had not waited for the day of honor and wealth as a wife, instead staining the battlefield with her blood. How could he not feel a deep sense of guilt? He had no time to think about personal matters and ordered the left and right troops shall form the Azure Dragon formation, blocking the enemy's attacks from both sides. The front and rear troops shall alternate and the rear shall slowly move out of the valley, seeking an open area to fight again. He understood that the terrain here was treacherous, with the enemy holding the high ground, making it extremely unfavorable for the Song army. Just then the torches on all sides suddenly extinguished, plunging the valley into darkness. The Song army's torches had gradually burned out and the valley was small, with visibility reduced to nothing. If the army were to be attacked now, they would undoubtedly trample over each other to death. Di Qing quickly commanded, "Stop where you are. Draw shields for protection and prepare to fight." No sooner had he spoken than a sound like rain descended, with countless arrows shooting down from the cliffs. A chorus of cries and screams erupted around him as the Song army was ambushed without any chance to retaliate, instantly thrown into chaos, with soldiers unable to discern direction while trying to avoid the hail of arrows, and a panic ensued as everyone rushed to escape. "General, the terrain is treacherous and we cannot see even a finger's breadth. We cannot determine where the valley's exit is," reported the leader of the rear troops on horseback. Meanwhile, the left and right troops outside continued to shoot arrows at the Khitan army, but their arrows were also running low. The situation was critical. Di Qing looked once more towards the southwestern direction, knowing that Ding Ning might not arrive in time to offer assistance, and here he stood with merely a few thousand men against the Khitan's 100,000-strong army. Tonight would likely bring great peril. His gaze suddenly grew sharp and piercing, reflecting the terrifying bronze mask that instilled fear. "Everyone, knock your arrows, draw them fully, but do not release yet." He issued the order word by word. The Song army, hearing their leader's calm voice, felt a bit more at ease and stood firm, ready to release their arrows. At this time the Khitan arrows and rolling logs continued to assault from the cliffs, and the Song army's casualties had already surpassed half. Di Qing once more looked up and around, suddenly raising his bow, and with a swish he shot an arrow that struck down a lantern directly above the left Sage King's head. He had already noticed that this lone lantern was the guiding light for the Khitan. It indicated the direction the Song army would charge. Thus, although both armies were shrouded in darkness, the movements of the Song army were entirely controlled by the Khitan. Once the lantern was shot down, the Khitan army also lost their target, and chaos ensued in both the valley and the upper ground. Leading a group of elite cavalry, Di Qing charged around trying to find the entrance to the valley. Yet amidst the chaos and darkness, how could he possibly find it? His armor was splattered with blood and sweat streamed down his temples, but in the biting cold of the night beyond the fortress it quickly crystallized into ice shavings. His soldiers beside him kept falling, and after several rounds only a dozen cavalry remained. At that moment Di Qing had made up his mind to fight to the death. Wielding the Bijang sword, he fought fiercely, shouting, "Kill the enemy! Kill the enemy!" He shouted, bathed in blood like an ancient war god. Wherever he and his horse went, no one could withstand them. "Song army, follow me and let's break out together." He galloped back and forth in the valley, and the remaining troops gradually gathered around him. Di Qing was unsure which direction to charge, but suddenly he faintly heard the sound of drums. Such a familiar rhythm. What is it? He was stunned on his horse. The ambush from 10 sides. It was indeed the ambush from 10 sides. Di Qing felt an indescribable joy surging in his heart, exclaiming, "Xuehong!" The drum beat quick and piercing through the night like raindrops. The drum beat came from the southwestern direction. Di Qing turned back and ordered everyone head southwest and attack with full force. He was the first to turn his horse and charge into the enemy ranks. Arrows rained down from the enemy and soldiers fell one after another. Di Qing swung his sword, cutting down several Khitan soldiers, then raised his head and shot an arrow at the left Sage King. The arrow flew like a full moon, swift like a shooting star. Suddenly another string twanged and another arrow shot forth like lightning. The two arrows clashed and fell to the ground. The archer was the Peepa princess of Gaochang. The left Sage King, frightened by this, became furious and ordered, "Charge with all your strength, let not a single Song pig escape. Those who bring me Di Qing's head will be rewarded with 1,000 gold pieces and promoted 3 ranks. Following this decree, the Khitan army attacked even more fiercely. The Song officials and soldiers had already suffered heavy casualties but still pressed forward towards the sound of the drums. The drumbeat was like a guiding light. The Peepa princess frowned, sneering, "How is it that she is still not dead?" She hesitated for a moment, gritted her teeth, and attentively listened to the direction of the drumbeat. She raised her bow and swiftly shot an arrow towards the source of the sound. In the darkness the drumbeat abruptly ceased. With the disappearance of the drumbeat, the Song soldiers immediately lost their sense of direction, charging chaotically in the night, and were thrown into disarray. "Xuehong, what has happened to you?" Di Qing cried out in his heart, repeatedly looking up and around trying to see the direction of the valley's exit. But in the pitch-black night only snowflakes drifted down, and he heard the distant calls of wild geese. Could it be that he and 10,000 soldiers of the Song were to perish here? Suddenly once again the drumbeat sounded. Extremely slow yet immensely powerful. The Song soldiers felt a jolt of spirit and began to fiercely charge towards that direction once more. The Peepa princess' eyes brimmed with killing intent. She stomped her foot and shot another arrow. But this time the drumbeat only paused slightly before resuming its steady rhythm. Although slow, it was incredibly steadfast and powerful. She let out a long sigh and with a forlorn expression lowered. At this moment a loud clamor erupted from the southwestern corner and a scout rushed over to report, "Your Majesty, Ding Ning has already subdued Commander Feng's troops and is moving to attack our outer ranks." The left Sage King was taken aback, unable to remain seated. That brat Fong Tianyu boasted he could capture Ding Ning alive. Now what should we do? He looked at the Pipa Princess for help. Without a moment's thought she coldly replied, "Ding Ning and Di Qing are both exceptional generals. If they attack together, our army will absolutely be no match. We should retreat while it's still dark to preserve our strength." Di Qing led his troops towards the source of the drumbeats, and along the way bodies lay strewn everywhere, blood staining their battle garments. After an unknown amount of time he charged into a group of soldiers and suddenly heard someone shout, "Di Qing, is that you?" He was startled and looked up, seeing the Song flag illuminated by the flickering torches as someone rushed towards him. Amidst the dim light he recognized that young yet resolute face. He pulled off his bronze mask and galloped forward. When they drew close they embraced tightly on horseback. Two young generals, equally youthful and exuding the charisma of leaders, wept tears of joy. After the fierce battle it felt as if they had been separated for an eternity. Their meeting on the battlefield, a bond akin to brotherhood, moved both men to tears. However, neither wasted time. Ding Ning quickly regained his composure, inquiring about the battle situation in succinct terms, and after discussing a few points with Di Qing they quickly established a new plan. "Di Qing, you have fought hard all night and are exhausted. Take the remaining troops back to rest. Leave the pursuit of the retreating Khitan army to me." His shoulders bore the weight of the situation. He saw that among the 10,000 soldiers who had gone with him only over 2,000 managed to break through, each one covered in blood, and he felt a pang of guilt. "You have truly endured much. I was held back by that traitor Fong Tianyu arriving late. My apologies." At this moment Di Qing noticed multiple bloodstains on his armor, with injuries on his shoulders, left rib and lower back, blood gushing from the wounds. He had been crazily hacking away moments ago, completely oblivious to the pain. He smiled pale-faced. "We are all fighting for our country, why should we be polite?" Ding Ning said no more and with a command urged his troops to rush to the front lines. However, after just a few steps he pulled his horse back and whispered in Di Qing's ear, "Wei Yang. How is Wei Yang? Have you seen her?" His tone revealed undeniable urgency and concern. Di Qing suddenly jolted. Only then did he realize that he had no idea when the drumbeat had ceased. "Xuehong," he shouted, turning his horse towards the valley and galloping forward. Ding Ning's expression also changed. He knew something terrible must have happened. As the large troop passed through, a cloud of yellow dust rose in the desolate plains. The moon was dark and the wild geese flew high. The Chinyu fled into the night. Wanting to chase down the light cavalry, heavy snow filled the bow and blade. The battlefield was a scene of blood and flesh. Countless corpses lay haphazardly on the ground, some without heads, others missing limbs, and some with their bellies split open. Many crows and eagles circled in the sky, picking at the flesh of the dead. Di Qing was searching for someone, frantically wading through the pile of corpses. The drumbeat from last night, like a solitary light in the long night, had given the beleaguered Song army a glimmer of hope. The rhythm of the drumbeat echoed that of the peace ambush from 10 sides. He recognized it. The Princess Wei Yang had played this tune before. He could tell that the one beating the drum at the valley's mouth was her. He abandoned his horse and climbed the steep cliff. The injuries all over his body nearly robbed him of consciousness, yet he still leaned on his sword, stepping through the snow one step at a time. Upon reaching the perilous summit of the valley his gaze brightened. He saw a military drum half buried in the snow. One side of the drum had been smashed. The force with which the drum was struck was evident. But where was Princess Wei Yang? Di Qing scanned the surroundings, only seeing a vast expanse of white. Suddenly he noticed something protruding from the snow. It was a broken arrow feather. A carved feathered arrow. He rushed over and brushed aside the snow covering it. The snow was only a thin layer, and beneath it lay a person beautiful like a lotus flower. Princess Wei Yang. She lay quietly on the snow, the blood around her having frozen. 2 arrows had struck her back, one piercing through from behind her shoulder, emerging below her collarbone, the other had been lodged in her spine. Di Qing's knees suddenly gave way and he involuntarily knelt down, slowly leaning over to lift her from the ground. Her complexion was as white as blood, seemingly transparent. Her long black hair was matted with white snow cascading down to the ground behind her ears. In her hand she still tightly clutched the drumstick. "Xuehong, Xuehong." Di Qing could no longer contain himself and loudly called out, shaking her shoulders with urgency. Yet she merely shook unresponsive, not moving at all. Di Qing hurriedly took out a healing ointment from his bosom, applying it to her wounds, then unfastened his wine pouch at his waist, pouring several mouthfuls down her throat. The wine was exceedingly strong, said to be able to ignite like oil. He glanced at the surrounding terrain, finding a sheltered spot, and sat down, holding her, unfastening his armor, enveloping her icy body in his embrace. He understood the severity of her wounds from the arrow and having been buried in the snow for a night. She resembled a beautiful ice sculpture, crystal clear yet devoid of life. Di Qing's thoughts drifted back to a long time ago. Their first meeting by the Yima stream, the beautiful and mischievous young princess in the Wang mansion, the martial talents of the duke and his daughter turning enemies for his sake, the cold yet warm stable over the past 2 years, and the night she left in tears, the heavy snow in the frontier. Everything seemed far away yet vividly appeared before him. But when she reappeared before him as Princess Wei Yang unexpectedly, she was already on the verge of becoming a general's wife. Princess Wei Yang and Xuehong were entirely different people. She was noble, elegant, restrained and courteous, a flawless noble lady. However, he felt an unprecedented sense of her inner struggles and pain through such a sharp contrast. At that moment the Wei Yang in his arms stirred slightly. Di Qing snapped back to reality and hurriedly looked down at her. She struggled to open her eyes only to see a terrifying mask. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes. "Who are you?" Once the words were out she recalled and smiled. "So it's you, General D." Her complexion remained extremely pale and her voice was barely above a whisper. "The troops. Are they all safe?" she asked gently. That battle was truly devastating. Xuehong. Di Qing slowly lowered his mask, gazing at her, the frost in his eyes melting away. He had suppressed his emotions for too long. Only then did Princess Wei Yang realize she was leaning in his embrace, feeling a moment of discomfort on her face. "This is not appropriate. If others see, they will talk." "General D, what happened to Ding Ning? Where is War?" She intentionally brought up these two individuals to remind Di Qing that their identities no longer allowed for any entanglement. One has left and the other has died. Di Qing's face turned pale, his words carrying an undeniable resolve. There was also a flash of lightning-like brilliance in his eyes. It seemed he had made a significant decision. "Xuehong, I love you," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. "I have loved you since the first time I saw you by the stream. Don't you think that's absurd? A stable boy, a prisoner, how could I dare to harbor improper thoughts toward a princess? Moreover, with my status, having a high family background and a wife, how could I allow myself such improper thoughts?" Princess Wei Yang stared blankly at him, momentarily believing she was dreaming such words. She thought she would never have the chance to hear him say them again. He sighed. "I have always wanted to stand out in the military for the glory of my family. I truly do not wish to ruin my future." Princess Wei Yang smiled slightly. "It's nothing, I don't blame you. A good man should clear the world." Cough cough. "Until the Xiongnu are defeated, how can one have a home? Right?" Her pale cheeks flushed with a strange hue and her once pale face suddenly had life. Di Qing's hand rested on the sword of Bijong, his voice heavy. "I am not like Ding Ning. He is the son of a general born to be a commander. But I have gained everything step by step through my own efforts. I cannot give up easily." Princess Wei Yang leaned on his shoulder, her beautiful eyes staring at him without blinking, taking shallow breaths, and softly said, I suddenly feel very cold." Her frail body began to shiver like a withered leaf in the wind. Di Qing embraced her, giving her a sip of strong wine, and urgently asked, "How are you?" Just moments ago he had remained stoic amidst the army's pressure, yet his voice now trembled uncontrollably. "Cold. It's cold to the bone." Princess Wei Yang's teeth chattered, her voice breathless. After a struggle she managed to calm her breaths and said word by word, trembling, "Very good. You finally admitted it. It is not in vain. Not in vain for me." Before she could finish she began to gasp heavily. Tears streamed down her eyes, crystalline droplets flowing over her pale cheeks, freezing at the edges. Her hand was held in Di Qing's warm and strong grasp. Such warm hands were what she had longed for amidst the cold upbringing in the Wang mansion. But was it too late? Di Qing said slowly, "War is already dead. I also plan to lay down my armor and return to the fields. Will you still go with me?" Princess Wei Yang looked at him in surprise. Your ambitions, your dreams. You don't want to become a renowned general throughout history." Di Qing looked up at the Bijong sword planted in the snow, a bitter smile appearing on his face. "Let's just forget it." Princess Wei Yang smiled weakly, shaking her head slowly yet resolutely. "No. You must not. You cannot destroy your future. I do not want to stop you from your path. If 1,000 years later there is your name in the history books, I will be very happy." A slight smile appeared at the corner of her mouth as she spoke, intermittently taking a breath between each sentence. Ding Ning is a very good person. I can marry him. It's also a blessing. I do not wish to bring shame to the general's mansion and the duke's mansion." Di Qing looked down at her, tears glistening in his eyes. Who among them was different when it came to heartbreak? "I beg you, take me back. Even if I die, please bring my body to him. We, the Zhao family, are of celestial lineage and we will never go back on our word." Before she could finish her sentence the color drained rapidly from her lips and cheeks and her voice gradually faded away. In the azure sky a pair of white eagles soared across the heavens. That day the wind and sand were fierce, making it impossible to open one's eyes. Di Qing dismounted before the camp gate, preparing to help the person down from the horse, when he saw a rider approaching from the north, also dismounting 10 paces away. It was Ding Ning. The two slowly led their horses over I have something for you, Ding Ning said, slowly lifting a person down from the horse's back. War is not dead, just slightly injured and has temporarily fainted. Qing's gaze flickered, but he still reached out to take his wife. I don't know if this will make things more difficult for you, but you know I must bring her back, Ding Ning said. Qing suddenly erupted in anger, exclaiming, shut up. Do you think I am what kind of person? Just because I dislike someone do I wish for her death? He slightly controlled his outburst, lowering his voice. I also brought someone for you. But I am truly sorry, I cannot guarantee she will survive. Ding Ning saw Princess Wei Yang on the horse, the 2 arrows in her back, and his face changed dramatically. Without a moment's hesitation he rushed over to lift her down and ran into the camp, shouting to the soldiers, quick, summon the imperial physician. She once said that even if she died I must bring her body to you. Qing slowly said to Ding Ning in the central military tent, she lived as a member of your Ding family and died as a ghost of your Ding family. Ding Ning let out a slow, bitter smile. For a general who had just returned victorious, such a smile was utterly inappropriate, yet all I received was a soulless Princess Wei Yan, while Xuehong, she had already died when you sent her away back then. He sighed. For me, the person I truly wanted has been lost forever 3 years ago. He pressed a hand against his wound, coughed a few times, and his gaze grew even more desolate and lonely. By the way, how is War? She's fine. She woke up yesterday, her body is strong and recovering quickly, Qing said. My mother has already sent someone to make chicken soup for her to nourish her health. Ding Ning sighed, she's already unfortunate enough, you will certainly treat her well in the future, right? Qing answered without hesitation, of course I will. Because she is my wife. A long silence fell in the tent. It was unclear what the 2 commanders were each thinking. Do you know why War is still alive? After a long while Ding Ning asked. Qing shook his head. He had clearly seen the Pipa princess kill her with a single strike. Ding Ning continued, that day I led troops to pursue the Khitan forces and fought fiercely, causing them to abandon their helmets and armor. By the time I got closer, the Pipa princess suddenly turned around and shot an arrow at me. I was caught off guard and the arrow struck my heart-protecting mirror. But when I looked down I found that the arrow had lost its tip and there was a rolled-up silk note tied to it. He took out a piece of cloth from his bosom and spread it out on the table. Qing, look at this. On the silk was a letter written in elegant and graceful Han characters. General of the cavalry Rong Bing Gaochang has had diplomatic relations with the Song dynasty for decades, sincerely submitting and daring not to harbor any ill intentions. This cooperation in rebellion is not by choice. My father has been captured by the Khitan and Luopu, and Gaochang cannot help but align with the tiger. Yet I do not wish to be enemies with the heavenly dynasty, and as soon as an opportunity arises I will kill the left noble king to rescue my father. Now I have kept Deputy Commander D's wife to show my sincerity. Yours sincerely, the people woman of Gaochang. Ding Ning said, I immediately sent people to the valley to find Miss War and indeed discovered that she was not dead. After a pause he looked at Qing, in your opinion how much of what is said in the letter is true? Qing took a long time before replying, 80%. Ding Ning nodded, I think so too. The king of Gaochang has always been cautious and respectful, he is not someone who schemes rebellion. Qing said calmly, there is only one point that is problematic, why did she want to kill the Princess Wei Yang? At that time she could have deliberately shot the arrow off target, yet she shot 2 arrows in a row. Why do you think that is? The expressions of both men changed slightly. Killing Princess Wei Yang indeed angered the 2 generals who held great power. Ding Ning pondered his red brush, drawing a line on the sheepskin map, the blood-red arrow pointing straight at Gaochang. Move the troops to destroy Gaochang. The arrow was as red as blood. This line drawn with a red brush marked the route for troop movements, each step would be paved with blood. Better to believe in its existence than to disbelieve it. Qing pondered, I also think sending troops is better. Ding Ning nodded. When Ding Ning entered the west chamber he couldn't help but gasp. The room was filled with a blazing fire, causing people to sweat profusely. Doctor, how is the princess' condition? Ding Ning lifted the curtain and lowered his head to observe her complexion. Her face remained pale and calm without a trace of vitality. The imperial physician wiped the sweat from his forehead, straightened up, and sighed, the arrow wound is not serious. However, she fainted in the snow for an entire night and her body is weak, thus the cold air has invaded her lungs and meridians. I fear. Ding Ning said solemnly, speak freely. I fear that the princess' feet may have been frozen and necrotic, and when she wakes she will surely be disabled. The imperial physician trembled as he carefully removed her shoes and socks. Her feet were delicate, her ankles as beautiful as fine porcelain. But when the physician lightly tapped with his finger, the ankle made a brittle sound as if it were ice. This was no longer something a flesh and blood body could endure. Her feet had already turned to ice in the snow outside the Great Wall. Ding Ning bowed his head and slowly said, you may leave now. He sat down by the bed looking at Princess Wei Yang. His wife. Wei Yang. Wei Yang. He whispered as if afraid to wake her, although he knew she could not hear him. As if sensing his thoughts, Princess Wei Yang actually slowly opened her eyes. Her clear watery gaze made Ding Ning's heart tremble. This time what made his heart tremble was not her smile reminiscent of an ice plum, but entirely because of Wei Yang's gaze. Wei Yang's. Ding Ning. She murmured as if in pain. Her body seemed to be draped in ice and snow, but her legs felt as if they had lost all sensation, heavy and numb. She struggled to sit up but could not. A wave of fear washed over her as she reached down to touch her right leg. Where her hand reached, the skin was stiff and cold as ice, completely devoid of feeling. She paused for a moment, unwilling to give up, and struck her left leg hard again, but it felt like hitting dry wood. She stopped moving, quietly leaning against the head of the bed, turning her face towards the bed. After a long time she asked, "Is my leg crippled?" Ding Ning remained silent. When he was silent, it often meant he was agreeing. "I'm sorry," Princess Wei Yang said softly. "Why do you say sorry?" Ding Ning asked. "Because you will have to marry a wife you do not love, and one who is also disabled. This is not something you should have to bear." Princess Wei Yang's voice trembled uncontrollably. "I'm very sorry for causing you trouble. But is all this something you should have to bear?" Ding Ning could no longer contain himself. He firmly held her shoulder, turned her around, and saw her tear-streaked face. This was the first time he had seen her tears. Even the night she left Qing, when she covered her face with her hands and rushed into the vast snow, no one had seen a single tear from her. She was originally a very strong person. Ding Ning raised his hand and wiped away the tears from her face. His fingers were roughened by blades, yet his movements were extremely gentle. "Since we have drifted along with the current, let's get along well. We have plenty of time. Perhaps one day we will understand that aside from cherishing the old memories, today is also worth seizing." Princess Wei Yang stared blankly at the sky outside the window, contemplating the few words Ding Ning had left when he departed. She felt as if something in her heart was collapsing. In the dusk, a horn sounded continuously outside the camp. "War, are you feeling any better?" The old lady D entered the room, asking as she came in. "Mother, I'm here." A clear voice unexpectedly rang out from outside the courtyard. War was by the well, washing clothes with her hair in disarray, responding loudly. The old lady D sighed. You can't be idle for even a moment. It's just my lot to be busy." War smiled, revealing a pair of small white tiger teeth. "Mother, don't worry, I'm very strong and I've completely recovered now. Even if you're well, you shouldn't rush to work. This clothing is. Qing's right." The old lady D smiled. War lowered her head shyly. "Some of it belongs to his subordinates. They have no family, so I simply washed it for them. It's not easy for him to manage so many people, so I can only help him like this." Her sincere and bright face resembled a blooming mountain flower. The old lady D lovingly stroked her hair. "Good child, truly a good child. Our D family is blessed to have such a good daughter-in-law. With you looking after Qing, I can die peacefully." War held her hand and said softly, "Mother, you are still in good health. Don't say such things." The old lady D nodded. "Indeed, I still want to hold grandchildren. War, Qing is busy with military affairs. You should also be more understanding of him." War rubbed the military uniform as hard as cowhide and said softly, He is doing great things. I certainly understand. Even though that night he was captured by the Hu barbarians and didn't come to me, I don't blame him at all. He is a great hero, and War can marry into the D family, which? She smiled brightly and lowered her head to wash clothes. Outside the courtyard, a person who was preparing to enter quietly listened, and tears gradually welled up in his eyes. "A great hero." He smiled bitterly. "Qing, are you a hero?" The angel had been frightened and lost her nerve, and before the wedding could be held again, she hurried back to the capital to report to the emperor. At the same time, a memorial regarding the recent rebellion and pacification was also sent to the capital. Spring reached the frontier. The pasture turned green and the grass stretched endlessly to the horizon. What a vast expanse of grassland! Princess Wei Yang exclaimed in delight. After more than a month, her complexion had improved significantly, but her feet remained numb and stiff. Ding Ning, unable to bear seeing her cooped up indoors, took the opportunity to bring her out for a stroll. "It's not grassland, it's a prairie," Ding Ning corrected with a smile as he sat behind her. Princess Wei Yang gently bit her left little finger and suddenly said, "I really want to fly a big kite." She turned around, her smile radiant like a flower. "When can we fly a big kite on this prairie?" Ding Ning also smiled and shook his head. Would Princess Wei Yang really say such things? "In the past, before I met you, I heard that Princess Wei Yang was a well-educated and very courteous young lady from a noble family." Princess Wei Yang lowered her head and chuckled. "That was just for show for others. Now I feel there's no need to pretend in front of you. We both know what kind of people we are, right?" She gazed far into the horizon where the prairie met the blue sky. "Meeting you is my good fortune. I am really very happy now." "Then how could that not be my good fortune?" Ding Ning smiled and galloped deeper into the prairie, the two of them riding freely under the blue sky. At that moment a mournful cry echoed through the sky, and they saw a vulture chasing a hawk, having already plucked several feathers from it. The hawk cried out in distress, flying crookedly, and it looked as if it would be caught by the vulture's sharp claws. Princess Wei Yang grabbed the bow from the saddle and knocked an arrow to shoot at the eagle. But when she pulled the bowstring, she found she had no strength in her arm, and the arrow fell to the ground before even flying 3 zhang. Ding Ning, fearing she would be upset, reached around her from behind with his left hand, grasped the bow, and with his right hand holding hers drew the bowstring back. When he released it, the arrow flew and the vulture fell to the ground with a whoosh. Ding Ning smiled as he let go, preparing to praise her to cheer her up, but he heard Princess Wei Yan let out a sigh and could not help but gently ask, "What's wrong?" I have become a useless person. All that martial arts have been learned in vain. Her voice trembled slightly, shivering in his embrace like a cold dove. How have I become like this? It would be better to die. Ding Ning patted her shoulder, speaking softly. Don't think too much, I'm here for everything. But you will think of her and I cannot stop thinking of him. Princess Wei Yang said with a trembling voice. Ding Ning's gaze dimmed and he silently reined in the horse. Wei Yang sensed she had said something wrong and felt a pain in her heart, unable to find words to say. After a long time he finally said, Wei Yang, do you know? I have always thought how unfair heaven is to us, taking away our loved ones from us, but how forgiving heaven is, allowing us to meet each other. He sighed, looking towards the white clouds in the sky. In the past I never thought about it. I would accept a woman who was not Bingmei as my wife, but now I can say that I am willing to grow old with you. Wei Yang, what about? Princess Wei Yang's frail body trembled slightly, and after a long time she softly replied, Mem. She gently placed her hand in Ding Ning's. It was also a pair of warm and strong hands. Today, beneath the blue sky and green grass, their clasped hands promised to weather all the storms and honors of this life together. She had always been a woman of duality. Wei Yan was one side of her and Xuehong was the other. Born into that family, she had always lived in contradictions, but now she may have found the best way to unify both sides. Princess Wei Yang smiled slightly and said, I will sing a song for you. She cleared her throat and began to sing softly and shine on a piece of moonlight, the sounds of 1,000 households pounding clothing. The autumn wind never ceases, always filled with the sentiments of Jade Pass. When will the Hu scourge be quelled and my beloved cease his long expedition? This was from Li Taibai's Song of Midnight. Ding Ning smiled. What is it? Are you wishing to return to Jiangnan? Princess Wei Yang skillfully changed the subject. Are you really preparing to attack Gaochang? Ding Ning replied while folding a twig. Not decided yet, but the army is ready. Princess Wei Yan was silent for a moment and suddenly said unexpectedly, actually I believe what the Peepa Princess said is true. Then what explanation does she have for wanting to kill you? Ding Ning frowned. If she had not truly defected, she should have discreetly spared you. Because she is jealous of me. Princess Wei Yang enunciated each word, smiling at him. Did you not notice the look she gave? She admires you, likes you, and of course will not allow anyone to become your wife. In the desert the bonds of love and enmity are clear. It is only natural for her to shoot down her rival with an arrow. How do you know? Ding Ning asked in surprise, unable to fathom this strange reasoning. Princess Wei Yang smiled sweetly and winked at him. Women have an innate intuition about other women. My intuition tells me that she harbored ill will towards me from the very beginning. Indeed, she knocked out war in the bridal chamber and then impersonated war to subdue me. However, seeing how she intentionally avoided direct confrontation with you on the battlefield and spared war, it is evident that she sincerely wishes to cooperate with the Song dynasty. Her hostility is only directed at me alone. She turned her head to gaze at the horizon, a hint of a smile on her lips as she spoke candidly. Ding Ning realized. So are you implying that I should not use military force against Gaochang? This is a military matter. Do not ask me, General Ding. She laughed. It's nothing, you are not an outsider to me. Ding Ning even made a joke. The two exchanged smiles, allowing their steeds to gallop freely across the grassland. Under the blue sky a pair of white eagles soared across the heavens. Princess Wei Yang leaned in Ding Ning's embrace, smiling as she gazed at the distant rolling snow-capped peaks of the Tianshan Mountains, suddenly feeling an unprecedented tranquility and ease. She was originally a yellow oriole beneath the willows of Jiangnan, but now she had become a white eagle on the grassland. She had truly grown. A month later, news of turmoil within the Khitan came. Left virtuous king was beheaded and northern King Muzha was proclaimed king. Subsequently, Gaochang sent a letter to the Song dynasty requesting submission. With the imperial decree, orders were sent to the border troops. General Ding Ning and Deputy Commander Di Qing, for their achievements in quelling the unrest, were promoted, with Ding Ning elevated to Grand General Tian and Di Qing to Grand General Bijan, rewarded with 1,000 gold pieces and several cattle and wine. At the same time, Princess Wei Yan was conferred the title of Lady of Qin and Lu Shiwar was made Duchess of Guangping. In the military camp the atmosphere became lively again as the king of Gaochang personally came to apologize to the station generals. The king of Gaochang was an elderly man with white hair and gray-blue eyes. He trembled as he handed over a surrender document, while a servant on his left held a golden plate containing a piece of soil wrapped in straw. Gaochang will henceforth be subjects of the Song dynasty for generations and will no longer harbor any disloyalty. Ding Ning took the soil from the plate, turned and handed it to Di Qing, then looked around the stage and proclaimed loudly, "The Celestial Empire is founded on benevolence. As long as you all remain loyal and obedient, you shall ensure the prosperity of all realms. Long live! Long live! Long, long live!" The crowd below bowed down, their voices echoing to the heavens. The wind chimes under the eaves gently chimed in the breeze, the sound pleasant and soft. Princess Wei Yang, wrapped in a white fox fur coat, sat in a soft chair under the eaves, lightly plucking the guzheng resting on her lap. Princess Wei Yang. Someone called her gently from behind. She turned and saw the Peepa Princess standing at the edge of the eaves. She still wore her yellow robe with a carved bow and quiver hanging at her waist. She did not know how long she had been standing behind her, her expression a bit uneasy. Princess Wei Yang smiled gently and said, "Is it you?" Her demeanor was extremely calm, as if the other was someone unrelated to her with no past grievances or grudges. "Why don't you go outside and take a look?" asked the Peepa Princess. I can't go anymore. Princess Wei Yang smiled, my legs have frozen to death. The Peepa Princess expression changed. She did not expect such a serious outcome. Clearly this time Ding Ning had shown them mercy by not seizing the opportunity to strike down Gaochang, which was already a very generous handling. Princess Wei Yang turned her head, smiled. National grievances and favors require personal sacrifices, so you shot me twice with arrows for your country. I bear no grudge against you. She did not reveal the other's true intentions. Thank you, said the Peepa Princess sincerely. You truly deserve to be the general's wife. The two women who met on the battlefield in chaotic times should have become bitter rivals, yet now with just a smile exchanged it was as if they had forgiven each other entirely. It was once again the time when the snow on the Tian Shan mountains melted. Since September the Tian Shan had been sealed by heavy snow which would only melt by June of the next year. These 3 months were the golden period for transporting military supplies. What, you are returning to the capital? Di Qing exclaimed in surprise, turning his gaze from the sheepskin map to Ding Ning. The latter was repeatedly looking at a letter from the capital. Yes. This letter says I need to return to the capital before September to wait for orders to replace the position of Minister Qian. He was demoted to the inspector of Liuzhou last year due to dereliction of duty, and Princess Wei Yang's father recommended me to the emperor, so I must obey the orders and return to court. He seemed to find it difficult to say. Then you can go back with peace of mind. Di Qing patted his shoulder. Ding Ning looked up at the sky, his expression somber. At present the border is still unstable and we urgently need soldiers to guard it. But at this time I must just leave. Di Qing sighed and said slowly, the emperor's orders cannot be resisted by us. Moreover, maneuvering in the court for promotion will be quicker than battling in the borderlands. Besides, Princess Wei Yang's health is poor and she should return to Jiangnan to recuperate. When mentioning Princess Wei Yang's name, Di Qing's voice exhibited a subtle change. He could never remain indifferent. The name he truly loved and would forever love was one he could never forget. Ding Ning looked at him and smiled faintly. My father sent the 9 turns bear snake pill. If she takes it she should be able to recover. Rest assured she will surely be able to stand again. You know what kind of woman she is. Di Qing slightly turned his head and nodded. Beneath his serious and calm demeanor a restrained passion was stirring. It was evident that he was using all his strength to suppress his emotions. Having her by my side will be good. You need not worry. Ding Ning looked directly into his eyes. Di Qing, do not forget your ideals. After 1,000 autumns perhaps no one will remember me, but I hope people will remember you. Their gazes met and suddenly both were filled with tears. Good brother. Ding Ning stood up from his chair and embraced him tightly. Perhaps they were like 2 stars in the sky, though they could not truly get closer they would forever shine upon one another. The Tian Shan mountains towered into the clouds like jade sculptures, piercing the sky like a giant sword. Above the snowline snow accumulated throughout the year, but below the mountain gradually softened, revealing trees. At the foot of the mountain flowers of various colors bloomed. The streams had thawed, gently winding around the mountain base like ribbons. The grass was as green as emerald and the sea of flowers spread like a carpet towards the foot of the mountain. The sound of hooves echoed as horses stepped on the stones in the stream. Hiss, the horses neighed, pausing at the foot of the mountain. Di Qing and the other commanders, there's no need to see me off. Once we pass this valley there's a main road straight to the central plains, Ding Ning said, smiling at the generals who were seeing him off. Princess Wei Yang sat before him and also smiled. You have already seen me off for over 100 miles. That is enough to show your earnestness. Sending you 1,000 miles we must eventually part. Her gaze fell on Di Qing's face but soon moved away without any reluctance. Sending you off 1,000 miles we must eventually part. In the midst of the snowstorm she was to depart forever. This deep love of youth would be forever buried in the wind and snow at the border. Di Qing, after I leave all matters at the border will be entrusted to you. Supporting the northern frontier alone is no light burden, Ding Ning whispered. Do well. Di Qing replied slowly, as long as I have this body to serve the country, what need is there to be born into the Jade Gate? Ding Ning smiled, turned his horse's head and galloped towards the mountain pass. His complexion remained pale but the traces of wind and sand were left on him, no longer possessing the thin and delicate noble aura of the past. This period of life at the border would forever be etched in his heart. As he departed he was still exactly the same as when he arrived, the only difference being that he took away a person he had once thought he would never accept. 2 years ago when he left the capital alone to be stationed at the border he did so with a resolve to face death. He would rather die on the battlefield for his country than live his life imprisoned in a cage. But now he was going back. He lowered his head towards that cage and made a compromise to some extent. If he had not left perhaps he too would have become a renowned general like Di Qing. As the crowd slowly rode away the figures of the two could no longer be seen. In the snow on the ground only 2 deep hoofprints were left. At the eastern gate of Luntai I send you off while the snow fills the road to Tianshan as you depart. The mountains turn and I cannot see you, the snow only leaves traces of where the horse has passed. But Di Qing remained at the Jade Gate and 2 years later was transferred to the southern frontier. Time and again glorious battles made this name resound at the border. 1,000 years later, opening the Song history, there suddenly appeared a biography of Di Qing. A famous general through the ages with countless glorious achievements and entanglements of honor and disgrace. As the great river flows eastward the waves did not wash away this name. However, behind this name and history how many unknown blood and tears lay hidden. No one knows that in this historical record there was originally another equally excellent young man's name, nor does anyone know that in the life history of this generation's famous general there was once a story of a beauty which should have had another poignant elegy amidst the clangor of war. All of this has been buried in the rolling river of history. Right and wrong, success and failure turn to emptiness. The green mountains remain the sunset red numerous times. The flying swan's footprints in the snow leave no trace, all has quietly faded into obscurity in the hurricane of history. Life is but a dream, let us raise a cup and toast to the moon over the river. The End, 1997. 7. 268. 9.